What's up, everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook live stream. And today we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite topic, uh, the Umbrella Academy. No, not the Umbrella Academy. Mostly Jordan Peterson and Elliot Page, and not really Elliot Page fighting Jordan Peterson. Mostly Jordan Peterson self-owning, um, and Elliot Page just living his best life. So yeah, but we're gonna be talking about that today. Hard to avoid this subject, and also it's something that's haven't gone into in depth for a while. So I figure why not begin on that. Anyway, first up, I just want to say I like the Umbrella Academy as a show, as a show that is definitely very it's very funny. It's very well written. It's very snappy. It deals with a lot of it's a comic book character superhero based show, based on the My Chemical Romance dude, his own stories and his own tales, and it's very watchable, I would say. It's very similar to the Doom Patrol, which I've done another video about previously. That it's a family inside of a big old dusty archaic mansion with a kind of weirdly abusive, although simultaneously helpful but also abusive. Well, the Umbrella Academy is mostly abusive daddy character that owns the mansion, and then there's this team of superheroes inside the mansion. Professor X is also like that. The School for Gifted Mutants, run by Mr. Professor Xavier, is also very much like the Umbrella Academy. And so it's a show that's very entertaining. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. We're going to get into the gender stuff. Don't worry. I'm just trying to give a little bit of a brief synopsis of this show. But it does star Elliot Page, who is and dealing with the transition, which of course a lot of people have been noting, was I think it was actually very well done. I mean, I can't really, you should, ask people who have experienced that process more about what they think about it. But I thought it was like very well done. The character, a lot of the way that people react, the family. You have Luther. Sorry, is it Luther or is it Marcus? I can't remember. The big dude. I'm really bad with character names a lot of the time, unless it's like ancient '80s movies. Even then. But you have the big dude who is like he's like the big tough Hulk kind of character. You've got and they all have numbers: number 1, number 5. Number 5 is the kid. He's permanently stuck at like somewhere between prepubescence and teenagehood. He's getting a little bit older now, I think, so it's gonna have a hard time keeping him stuck there. But dude, he's a time traveler and a teleporter. And you have the Ben who shoots tentacles out of his chest. He's kind of a walking colossal squid summoner. And then you have on the underneath Mr. Blue Shirt is the knife throwing master who can throw curved knives like they curve bullets in what's that show? Pitch Perfect. And then you have the I See Dead People Bruce Willis character, and resurrects dead people sometimes, and also very 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 extravagantly gay, and which is good, especially in these times, and also very a lot of drugs. Klaus on the very bottom, and Elliot Page, of course, has like it's kind of like a cross between the Dark Phoenix superpower, like just like earth ending, like nearly basically unlimited power, like can destroy the moon and earth and everything at the same time, power, but it's hard to control, and scared that Elliot's character, Victor, can't control it, right? So that's kind of that deal. And then you have the girl in the center with the green dress. I'm sorry, I'm the names fall out of my head, but Allison's character whispers things, and when she whispers a thing into your ear, like I heard a rumor that you stuck your thumb up your butt and sang Yankee Doodle Dandy 2,000 times, and then you get stuck there doing that. Whatever she says into your ear, like you get stuck doing that thing, no matter what. So if you hear it, so and she's also a pop star and a celebrity musical. I mean, the original writer show is a musical celebrity, My Chemical Romance, right? So it's like one of the godfathers of emo. So it's weird to say that because the guy's like younger than me. But anyways, the 2000s Tumblr era genre du jour. But anyways, so the point is that like each of these characters come together, they fight to stop the apocalypse multiple times, also similar to the Doom Patrol, constantly fighting to stop the apocalypse. And many different apocalypses in multiple timelines. And Mr. Number 5 works for sometimes is antagonized by the Commission, a kind of like the Tribunal, or it's like one of those, or there's this show called Continuum, where it's all about controlling the timeline, the timekeepers, the Doctor Strange, and the Order, right, that has to stop time from unraveling, right, by keeping the timeline intact, all the timelines intact in the multiverse, whatever. It's a very popular theme nowadays. But anyways, so the whole show is very wrapped up in that. And but the big deal, of course, right, that's everybody's talking about right now is, of course, Mr. Kermit the Frog here. Mr. I said don't do drugs, and then I did tons of drugs, and I say the opposite of what I do all the time. And I wrote a book called Maps of Meaning that has really disturbing stuff. I think this guy just needs like more therapy than the world has to offer, possibly. But he should really try his best, because disturbing stuff in there about dreams he had with his grandma, and the fact that anybody can take anything this guy says seriously after it's almost like his writing sometimes, it just looks like the word salad of like somebody that's deeply deranged and has extreme as somebody who deals in the psychological sciences. This is somebody who needs extreme assistance in his mental health, I think, and doesn't, it's like society has failed Jordan, and now he comes back and fails everyone. So anyways, he's a terrible person, just generally speaking. So I just want to get that off. This is not a thing about I'm going to both sides this. I do not like this guy. Also, my partner really doesn't either. As somebody who was raised in conservative Christian North American culture, which is what Jordan B. Peterson is all about standing. And also, you can Holly's, my partner's book, Woman. Just a good time to drop that down. Woman is a book about being raised in the kind of culture, right, that Jordan Peterson, who talks about preserving the correct Western gender roles, Christian Western gender roles of men and women, and women as subservient to men, and that's the way that they like it, and women not putting on makeup because that makes Jordan Peterson and his people and men, strong, good Christian men like him, become aroused inappropriately. All that kind of nonsensical stuff is the stuff that Holly was raised in so-called Canada, where Jordan Peterson is from. And Holly wrote this book about a woman raised in a woman raised in evangelical Protestant Christianity. And it is not a historical retelling, but a work of fiction and a lot of dunking on Jordan Peterson like culture through the lens of a retelling of the Bible from a very often frustrated and upset Mary. So yeah, so do check that out. So I just want to drop that in there. But yeah, so Jordan Peterson is, I don't think I need to rehash everything that's happening right now, but obviously he has been, I think, recently banned from Twitter, right? Isn't that what happened? Elon Musk is out there, men's right. He's men's right activisting Jordan, right? Elon is out there. I saw him. Elon was out there saying, Jordan did nothing wrong. Twitter has to go down. And Elon doesn't want to buy Twitter anymore. Well, because he doesn't have any money, because it's Western capitalism, along with its gender role concepts, are collapsing. But also, I think he's upset. Elon said Jordan Peterson's Twitter suspension goes too far. But let's look at what actually happened, right? Which is Jordan Peterson would rather die than delete Elliot Page tweet. So Jordan Peterson, uh, it looks to set to stay off Twitter for good, as he said he would rather die than delete a tweet about Elliot Page that got his account suspended. Last week, those close to Peterson revealed that Twitter had suspended his account and he could get it back within 12 hours if he deleted the tweet, which mentioned back when pride was a sin and referenced the criminal physician who removed Ellen Page's, so yeah, Elliot. Yeah, I know it's the thing is this is like the verbatim what he is tweeting. So I'm not trying to dead name anybody. Peterson has now spoken out against Twitter and addressed the remarks he made that got him banned from the platform. The Canadian social media personality posted a near 15-minute video to his Instagram and YouTube pages addressing the situation and doubling down on his original statement. The suspension will not be lifted unless I delete the hateful tweet in question, and I would rather die than do that, Peterson said in the video he posted late on Friday. What was it that I said that caused such a fuss? What was it exactly? Anyway, so basically a huge thing exploded where Jordan insisted on his like transphobic, insisting on Elliot Page's transition was criminal. This is some kind of affront on everything, civilization as a whole. Civilization, actually, this is gonna come back. I want to tie. There's several things happening today that I want to kind of tie this in, but it is clearly the case that I did not promote violence. Blah blah blah. So that leaves lesser sins of harassment. The harassment on the basis of so-called gender identity. So it's interesting what people call so-called, right? So I call it so-called Western civilization because it's not really civilized, right? If it based on genocide, plunder, destruction, and civilization is when men have short hair. Uncivilized is when men have long hair, right? That's why indigenous people had their hair forcibly cut. So I call the thing that's so-called, the thing that so-called means like that's what those people call it, but that's they're incorrect, right? So Jordan Peterson says there's so-called gender identity, right? Which is something that is different from your physical biological makeup. But I would the thing is what's so-called is really the Western conception of gender, right? And that's part of my point when I said like in this tweet, it's time to talk about one of the things collapsing is the concept of Western civilization itself, because Jordan Peterson he does represent what is the majority, the central thrust of Western civilization, which eradicated gender fluidity, trans people, non-binary gender, and equality among genders and peoples, right? And so Jordan Peterson is not just speaking for himself. He is speaking for Western civilization. He's speaking for Anglos. He's speaking for a lot of what Europe spread to the world under the colonial era. I speak as a native Hawaiian, something that was eradicated in my culture, right? And it's part of why I didn't figure out, maybe I'm not as cis male as I thought until way later. I would have figured it out earlier, but it's because like my language itself that was banned. Hawaiian language was banned when I was born. They also banned fluid gender, Mahu, which is a third gender in Hawaii, and all that stuff. It came with Western civilization. So in that sense, not because he's right. I think that Western civilization is wrong. It's not even civilization. That's why I call it Western barbarism, masquerading as civilized. Right? It's hard to determine what these words mean. But anyway, let's get back to this. So it is clearly the case that I did not promote violence, blah, 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 blah. So Jordan picked apart the first part of the statement referencing a time when pride was a sin. I don't regard pride as a virtue. It has been classically regarded as a sin. I don't see that sexual orientation or sexual desire of any sort is something to celebrate or take pride in. And as I said, I was merely stating a fact. So this is what it is. So when the West states ridiculous claims like, I don't know, there's a genocide somewhere where we want to start some kind of far-right extremism, terrorism, and make wars, right? Right? There's a human rights crisis in Iraq circa 1990, right? That's a fact, right? when indigenous people are savages. That's just a fact, right? Like the Department of Indian Affairs. Trans people don't exist. That's just a fact, right? There's only two genders, and everyone is born with that when they come out of the hospital. That's exactly what you are and what you will be forever. And that's just a fact, right? So the concept of facts and opinions is very like misleading. You know, that's part of the thing, is when a white dude like Jordan, when a conservative Christian white dude, or just a white dude generally, opens his mouth and says something and very sternly says it's a fact, you know, everyone is conditioned to accept that and just, oh, obviously, because Mr. Dude with serious suit said it. Daddy said it, you know, white daddy said it, so that's got to be the truth, right? But the thing is, like, there's not really, the West doesn't care about facts. Doesn't really, the word fact, what does that even mean, right? It's a fact that, you know, it's a fact that there was weapons of mass destruction here, or there was a human rights violation there. It's a fact that there, you know, what is a fact, right? American history books are full of not facts. So, but that's the thing is, you know, anyway, so he's just kind of like, he's just like restating the thing that he's already saying, the false thing that he's saying, harder and harder. And people like Jordan Peterson are used to just getting away with that, and everybody eventually shuts up. And if they don't shut up, and they just don't accept what the most powerful, richest, whitest, or most in a church, the pastor or just the dudes in the church, because it's Christianity is patriarchal and Christian and white. I was talking about you know, I have that whole album I'm making about where I play a demon, and all of the women, and especially women, white women, but also women generally, under conservative Christian culture are the witches in league with Satan and the demons, right? And so, but for in this conservative Christian culture, like, the women who are subservient, they're supposed to be subservient. That is Western civilization. You know, that is Western culture. That is American culture. That is British culture. That is French culture. It is patriarchal. You know, that's why everybody is like that's why when there is like women's rights, there's a lot of controversy, right? And when there is trans people marching the streets or during Pride Month, it's explosive, right? It's explosive. Why is it explosive? Because the norm of the society is misogynist. The norm of the society is unequal. The norm of society is anti-LGBTQ+. The norm of indigenous society is the opposite. It respects women and LGBTQ+ people and third gender people even more so. They're like not above, but they're just like extremely venerated for their particular contributions, and nature as well, which goes along with it, which ties into the whole capitalism, colonialism, and environmental destruction, which is when you treat nature along with women and non-straight cis men as sub underneath the men, then you produce these extractive and destructive tendencies along with misogyny. You know, it's actually like the queerphobia, the misogyny, the patriarchy, the abuse of women, the exploitation and killing and destruction of women, the subservience of women in white male households, and in male households generally of any color in the West, and the oppression of LGBTQ plus people, and the destruction of nature is directly, absolutely correlated. It's actually inseparable, I would argue. It is inseparable. The destruction of Earth, and people go like, well, you shouldn't be talking about pronouns. Who cares about pronouns? The Earth's being destroyed. It's not just about the pronouns, though. It's about accepting and recognizing differences generally as normal, and not one better than the other, and not one being abomination, right? And not putting certain people or objects or entities above others. So actually you know, you see where that happened, where it's like the queerphobia and the misogyny is also part of the nature isn't it, and it, like the way I abuse women and abuse queer people, I will abuse nature and extract all the resources and the oil and burn it all. I'll cut all the trees down, right? Take the oil and dump it into the water supplies, like in Hawaii or elsewhere all over the planet. And because the world is here for me to abuse and use as I see fit, like women, right? That I make wear long hair, and they listen to whatever I say and they do whatever I say, because they're not really people. They're not deserving of agency. They are objects, right? You know, like in Mad Max 4, we are not things. It's like the women and the destruction of Earth. Mad Max is about the destruction of Earth, right? The destruction of, let me just get a picture of that. Mad Max Furiosa and the women. There's a reason why, George Miller is trying to make a point here as somebody who is in a place, Australia, that is rapidly being massively ecologically destroyed, right? And he made this show like way back in the day. There's a reason why, and the women in the show, they're saying we are not things, right? Because Immortan Joe, as a representative, right, hoarding the water, like Mark Zuckerberg buying up all the reservoirs as the U.S. military destroys it and rationing the water out, or Mancorbs, the blue-eyed white man who buys all the water up and sells it back to people in a desertified Earth, right? Which is the water wars is what's happening in the U.S. and Canada right now. They're not shooting over it yet, but they're getting there. The U.S. military has been predicting this, but that's and they want it to happen. It doesn't have to happen. But the reason why that things have fallen apart ecologically in Mad Max and a lot of these dystopias were in a total environmental collapse is directly correlated to the abuse of women and third gender people and people of color, each of those individually and together. So a black trans woman is going to have some of the most horrible life experiences and have statistically the lowest life expectancy in the United States. But that correlates to the environmental destruction, because that you practice abusing your mother, that is the earth, by abusing and beating your wife. You practice and you're beating your children and treating your children and treating other people, and by bullying, right? Like in school, and then when you get out, then you bully your workforce, and the way that you treat your congregation, which is you gaslight them, take on your money and embezzle it, like lots of Jerry Falwells and all those kind of people. The way that the religious way you treat, which is abusive and lying and gaslighting and misleading, and then the way that you treat and telling everyone that COVID's going to be healed by Jesus Christ vaccines, which is a lie. And then the way you treat your family, which is you beat your wife, you beat your children, you lie to them, you make them subservient to you, treat them like objects, you don't let them say, you don't listen to what they say, you just treat them like trophies, right? But that and then the way that you get treated in the workplace, which is the boss tells you what to do and beats up on you, and the CEO and the capitalist extracts from you like an object, right? Like a cog, like a inanimate human-shaped thing with gears on it that churns out this machine called that pumps out widgets that are sold and then given for profit. Those ways of existing, right? Which is that there's things that count and there's things that don't count, and everything that doesn't count below is just at the whim. It has no agency. It has no, what the West calls democracy, but that's a lie. There's never been democracy. Whatever the top guy says goes, and it's always a guy. And so nature, by extension, goes wherever Mr. Dude says. So, and in that sense, actually, if you really want environmental change, you need to have gender and LGBTQ plus equality. It all has to happen all at the same time, right? Each of these fights are intimately linked, but you can't really deal with the things that are at the root of the environmental destruction without dealing with the patriarchal structures that build and are part and parcel of a mindset of endless extraction and domination and use without care for anything else but the user, and so that is not the way of indigenous people. That's why I would argue that's actually the environmental coexistence of indigenous people, where Hawaii has maintained for thousands of years pristine environments here, like Turtle Island Native American peoples, right? And many other cultures, indigenous cultures, have coexisted and maintained pristine ecological environmental environments, right, while maintaining their own needs and feeding their own people, right? And they also have equality for women and LGBTQ plus people as well, is because that's just a general way of perceiving reality, which is like the game of Go versus the game of chess, which is about coexistence and win-win cooperation to survive, right? Rather than controlling and killing to win for generally who the winner is the person at the top of the pyramid, the top of the castle, right? So, but that whole attitude of I control and I dominate for my personal benefit, is integral to all of this. Anyway, I've gone off on that for a bit, so let's come back to Elliot Page. So this fight between Elliot and Jordan, that's not really a fight between Elliot. Elliot's just doing whatever. The fight that Jordan Peterson punching at a printed out picture of Elliot Page and hitting himself in the face, getting banned off of Twitter, is actually illustrative of the collapsing of, it's not really the collapse of the world. I made a song about how the world will survive. The question is like, will the people in the United States, the Western world, survive? The people of the West have to, like, if you've been following my streams, I kind of reiterate that point. It's like, it's not like everybody that is like a certain melanin count. Like, we're gonna hold your skin up to this sheet of paper and see if you're this white, you got to go home or you got to just disappear. It's not like, or if you have an American flag, if you're of any color, you have to just vaporize off the planet or something like that. If you have a British flag, you have to just fall into the sea. It's not like you don't have to, right? It's just like, right? That's the point of my song about the demons, right? It's just like the world is shifting. The world, the mother is angry at you because you've abused your mother, because you're a shitty, toxic, garbage dude, right? If you are one. And so now Mother Nature is going, no, you're getting wiped out by wildfires. It's the response is coming. And people are falling, the people's abilities to sustain themselves are falling apart because they have mistreated the women in their life and the mother that is the earth in their life. And now Earth is going, the earth is on strike is another way to think about it. Like how people talk about, I need higher wages, I'm going to go on strike for my personal dignity, for my personhood, my agency, right? My dignified wages and housing and life. But maybe your mother's going on strike. Maybe your mother's going on strike and your mother's going, I'm not going to tolerate this abusive behavior anymore. So you better get right or you won't be around anymore. Because guess who feeds and sustains you? Is it Elon Musk? Is Elon putting food in your mouth? But that's just a fact. That's a fact. Elon provides millions of jobs and feeds and sustains everyone. And people like me are fed and sustained by my genius words in maps of meaning and 13 ways to become a upstanding, good Christian asset. I'm sorry. Be a Westerner. I feed and sustain young, depressed men's psychology when they lose a job or they fall out of the workforce or they're just a man-child sitting around on YouTube and the algorithm needs more eyeballs. And I feed and sustain them with my deep wisdom. I'm Jordan B. Peterson. That's why I was at the top of the algorithm. And I tell them what they want to hear, which is that women is what's destroying everything. And all I got to do is just read this book and be a Bitcoin billionaire. And it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out with me and Elon. Okay? We're going to feed you all. From our giant man pecs that we got eating 73 pounds of beef and turmeric and salt today. We're going to feed you all with our man pecs. Okay? It's not going to feed anyone. Doesn't exist. No, like that toxic behavior which is about, we're going to save Western civilization. Let's go back to the article, actually, just one of them. It is clear, Elliot Page, who came out as transgender in December 2020, was previously known. I'm going to try not to say that, the name, but, I'm just reading the article. But anyways, Peterson goes on to explain why he used the pronoun her rather than he or they to refer to Elliot. He suggested he needed to use Elliot's former pronouns to describe the mastectomy. How can I describe the fact that someone who was once a woman and really still is? Anyways, I don't want to read all that, but you can kind of see what he's saying. So this is a fad. So it's like this is a harmful fad. Without, so I have to use this other pronoun because this is a harmful fad. I mean, it's really like just like he's not apologizing. He does what he does, which is like doing legalese, academician speak, right? To not apologize and continue to double down and triple down and quadruple down on the thing that he said, and just increasingly dismissing and just continuing to attack Elliot Page and going, this is just a fad, this is criminal, and this doesn't exist, and this is a affront, this is a crime, right? Elliot Page is a crime against humanity. Well, no, it's a crime against Western civilization, right? Which is about what I just said. It is a crime against the United States and Canada because that's what they represent. So it's like, so that's the hard thing to entangle. I was actually posting this I'm going to bring this back into the climate thing, but I was posting today about the climate issues and Hawaii's environmental struggles. And somebody said, is it bad that I don't know if you can read this, but is it bad that my takeaway, right? Is it bad that my takeaway from this is that all Anglo civilization must perish? And he says, and I was like, and I was like, I mean, the thing is, like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want people to. It's not people. It's not like individual people. It's a psychology. It's a culture. It's a way of thinking. It's just the way that you relate to the world. It's not really even like a specific ideology. But the ideology of capitalism and the economics of capitalism are deeply entwined with and impacted by this, right? But it's like, and so they said Anglo civilization must stop existing, And I say that speaking as an Anglo. I mean, if you are somebody who identifies strongly as a British person, as a Canadian person, particularly, especially if you're white and especially if you're man, the more proximity you have to that, right? Which you benefit from United States, United States as an Anglo settler colony of Britain, right? Canada as an Anglo settler colony, but not just Anglo. It's the French also engaged in colonialism and plunder, and racism, and gender, and LGBTQ plus oppression. Spanish, the same thing, right? They have like literal words, or most of the words are gendered. Almost all the words in Spanish, right? So they all have like not like there's like a spectrum of ways and varieties and levels and severities of this kind of win-lose way of thinking. I just call it, it's hard to speak English because so many words have been mirror image. Like, I think it was KJ Noah was talking about, like, it's like a pinhole camera photo where the image that is projected of the world onto the screen, right? Through a tiny pinhole lens is inverted, right? But everything that the Western media says, or Western everything says, Western language says, is actually the opposite, right? So the number one human rights abuser is China. The number one human rights abuser is, I don't know, somebody that we hate, Cuba. The human rights abuser is Bolivia. The human rights abuser, but whatever they're projecting is actually the opposite. It's actually the U.S., right? Starting the wars, backing the fascism, destroying human rights, forced laboring, 2.5 million people in prison, and even more that we don't even know about all over the place, right? Backing global capitalism as an Anglo settler colony. So it doesn't mean that like people who are identifying as Anglo people have to like go away or something. It's just like, but like the way of thinking, right, that leads to stuff like this kind of obnoxious existence, and if you're it's like, how deeply is the identity of Americanness entwined with all of that? Because I can't really answer that. I don't feel like that's a hard question to answer. I think everyone, that's the 330 million people in the United States and all the 360 million people in North America have to themselves figure out their answer to that. They have to answer it though, because if they don't answer it, well, then they'll, like the people of Oahu also have to answer that as well. Because there's a lot of Hawaiians who are people who are members of the country of Hawaii who have been colonized. which is horrible and a shame and a crime. That is a horrible atrocity that was committed against us. But part of the result of that is our Hawaiians who identify as capitalist, pro-military, pro-cops, pro-empire people. And so those people also have to answer their own question of what is a non-capitalist, non-colonial, non-oppressive, non-misogynist, non-queerphobic Hawaii. Because the Hawaiians had queerphobia installed in them, but they have to uninstall it. You know? Or Oahu is just going to die, which, I mean, like I said last time, like I have a lot of rage for that entire island. So I don't really, you know, but at the same time, I don't want those people to suffer. Like I don't want people in the United States to suffer. I don't even want Jordan Peterson to suffer particularly. You know, I don't want those people to suffer. But if they can't answer their own question of what do we become that's not this unhealed thing, then they will continue to suffer. The world will suffer, but the multipolar, indigenous, Silk Road, win-win, cooperative world that accepts, you know, the thing about China is China has free gender confirmation care and gender affirmative, gender affirmation care, and then later they have you know, for trans children, right? So they're already, like, nobody is perfect, but they're like along that path already. You know, they also have the greatest renewable energy, and they're also a country with the world's largest communist party in the world. So the socialism, the LGBTQ plus acceptance, the gender equality, women's rights are much better. They have not banned abortion in China. All these things, like nobody's like perfectly along the path of these things, but they're just like further along, you know. And indigenous people in different ways are further along in Turtle Island and in Hawaii and elsewhere than the colonizers, right? So, but you know, one way or the other, you know, it's like the colonial era is only 500 years, right? It's a very brief period of time. The Earth has been around for 4+ billion years. You know, the people have been around for 70. African civilizations are 70,000 years old, and the indigenous civilizations, China's 4,000 years old. Indigenous people in South America are 5,000 plus years old. There's 10, 20,000 year histories in the Wet'suwet'en oral traditions, right? In indigenous people of North America, you know, so this brief window, right, is really a blip, right? It's a blip. It's like, and now it has to be rebalanced, right? Or it will be rebalanced one way or the other, you know. And it doesn't help to doomer about this kind of stuff, because that stops you from doing the work to rebalance in a better way, you know. You just, like, you know, getting upset about this happened and this happened and this happened. I mean, it's important to know what's happening, but if you don't have any solution-oriented thinking with that, right, and like the thing that you're actually doing, then you are actually contributing to a worse and worse and worse resolution, right? Because there's three, right? One of them is all of humanity goes away. Another way, with 90% of Earth species, like a Permian extinction like event. That's a very sad one, you know. And then there's another one where, you know, a lot of people die from wars and fascism and water wars, and then other people survive. And then there's another one where not that many people have to die, because 360 million people of North America, they just like look inside and they cry and they deal, and they have to have hard conversations with their family members and their relatives and their coworkers and all that, and then they just like figure out how to be in mutual respect with women and men and LGBTQ+ people, indigenous people, and all people of the world, and their capitalism, right? And then not as many people have to suffer and die as much. I mean, they're still gonna be suffering because stuff has happened, but it's like, you know, like that's, you know, like it's there are different levels of bad that it's gonna get to, and if you spend all day, right, you spend like majority of your time, right? I said, like, you know, I voted, to be honest. Like I said, don't spend like all your day like worrying about who to vote for, but yeah, I spend like 1 to 5% or less. You know, I don't spend a whole lot on that, which is what, because in a plutocratic world, especially not at the national level, at the local level, I spend more time, and I've seen material impacts from that, especially on the Big Island, because it's more Big Island is more like Cuba and Vietnam than any, the East Side is more like that, so it actually impacts things more. At a national level, I don't spend a lot of time, you know, but similarly, if you spend 90% of your time doomering out about what's happening right now, and not doing anything, right, then you are increasing the likelihood of the worst scenario happening, and it's not productive. So that's why we have to recognize those things, but we don't want to like just focus on it because the Western media is definitely wants you to spend all your time dooming out so that they can plunder and run away with all the money to Mars or wherever they want to go, right? And they want to YOLO them because if everyone in America, think about it this way, right? If everyone in the United States, right, and Canada and the Europe and the capitalist colonizer countries actually made what we call ho'oponopono, actually made pono, like actually, did the work and then dismantled their systems, right, and had the changes that they needed, the Bloombergs, right, and the CEOs would have a lot less suddenly to plunder, and they couldn't reign over, because what they want to do is they believe, rightly or wrongly, that they can reign over the ashes of a world that falls into a really bad scenario, right? But if the world gets healed and the U.S. integrates into the Silk Road, the new Belt and Road, the Silk Road, and people figure out what they're going to be. I can't say what the U.S. is going to be, right? The federation of it is the Turtle Island Federation of Anishinaabe and Iroquois and Blackfoot that used to be the U.S. or whatever it is, right? The United, I don't know, the North American plurinational sub area that was started in Bolivia and Venezuela, that's further along down there, right? Cuba, and whatever the Euro and the colonizer world. Japan is also in its own throes right now. So Japan, has to figure out, how to make right about the Shinzo Abe and the history of genocide against the peoples in China and Okinawa and all of those own crimes, right? They have their own, so that nobody's like perfectly along the path, but they all have the damage that they have to like make right, and concretely make equity, not just apologize. Sorry, we hurt Native Americans, but we're going to keep hurting you. You got to like actually fix that, you got to actually fix that. And not just with Native Americans, with your mother, the earth, not just and with all of your capitalist system. Sorry that we have an abusive economic system. We're going to make that better. Concretely, like real time, right now, right? Before we're all dead, or all in a hell that we can't get out of, right? So the thing is, like, those things are like, the approach should be like, how are we gonna like get along the path to have the minimum destruction? It not just like, oh, let's, because they always come at the end. It's like, let's have a responsive president. You're like kind of missing that point there. It's like not that you shouldn't have policies and you shouldn't like put people into power, but you have to like look at the structure. The national U.S. power structure is completely, by Princeton studies, it's 0.1% is the impact that the average person makes. It's basically null. The top 10% make about 70% impact, and the top 1% make it like 80% of all policy to 99% is all dictated by the top, and everybody kind of knows that in the United States, right? At a federal level. So the organizing has to begin at a local level, because that's where there's at least some, it's just like, where do you put your time and energy, right? It's like, that's a place where things can actually make material improvements. In a place like the United States, in further advanced actual civilizations like China, they can do things at a billion person level, and they get things done. But that's because they're just further along the path. They're not better. They're just like they're the only civilization that rose without firing shots and killing and bloodletting the world. They became the world's largest power by win-win connecting. They're really like the most successful. That's why I say China is just the most successful indigenous civilization the earth has ever seen, because they rose again without going to Africa, going to Asia, going to the Americas, like all the others, right? All the way back to Rome and Greece, they rose based on plunder and killing and enslaving. The Chinese have not. They've risen based on what Turtle Island, Native Hawaiian, and other indigenous win-win cooperative civilizations have done. They've risen based on figuring out how we can work together. We have to both work, but working together, we will be better off than working alone and trading, right? And that's really their secret sauce. The secret sauce is just like that, but nobody can't. Part of the problem of the West is you have to be able to admit that, but you can't. That's why they want you to hate China, is because they want you to believe that people like Elliot Page would struggle more there, right? But what they don't realize is that, like, you know, the Western civilization is the one that is actually doing the banning of and attacking of, right, all the turf and all the anti-trans stuff. That fight is not happening there. You know, they're not happening. They're not perfect, right? There's still some people who have like some reactionary views, maybe like especially older people that like had to survive siege colonial capitalism for the century of humiliation and famine. And then they built, but you know, but it's like they're not like in a fight, you know, and like the majority of the United States and Canada are like up in arms about this stuff, and they're gonna like bring fascism to the United States to eradicate SJW, woke, you know, cancer, whatever, you know, the women and trans people are destroying our great civilization. I mean, that think about it, right? People who have American and Canadian flags, they talk about it like Western civilization. American vibrancy is being destroyed by this plague of mentally ill, criminal, trans, and women thinking they can be independent, and people of color rising up and whining about them getting killed by police, right? That if that is the soul of the United States and Canada, then I don't know, man. It's not gonna work out too good. And I can't, again, I don't want to say what the solution is, because like that a true, actual, full healing of a civilization, right? Not just like token. Oh, here, have a reconciliation. Like, have a $1 million for this one reservation that's gonna be a bought off chief that's gonna abuse their own people and let the oil company drill on it. You know, that's not reconciliation. That's just that's Western words. That's platitudes. Like as Vijay Prashad, Indian communist from India, would say, one of the colonies. We don't need your colonial mentality or your colonial structures that are about lecturing and saying, you have to do better while giving abusive loans, right? Saying we're helping you while actually abusing, right? That's the way that Indigenous people are treated in the US and Canada is the way that Euro settler colonizers and Europe itself treats Africa and Asia and Latin America, which is lecturing them about how savage they are and how bad they are, and how they have to change and they have to privatize whatever, and how you have no human rights and all this stuff, and then giving them help, Western aid, a Bono concert, and then right, and then but then they're actually giving nothing. They give a loan and they take pictures of themselves giving loan. Look at this school I built. Look at Elon Musk's hospital he built for this one town in Africa. Look at that. It used to be an emerald apartheid mine, but now there's a road with a Tesla on it, and there's like one Tesla and there's half a road and it's a photo shoot, right? It's all optics, it's all lies, right? And then the reality is you're taking 99%. That's the way the Indigenous people are treated. So that's not acceptable anymore. But the thing is, and then when the West gets backed into a corner, it pulls out the fash, right? That's why Tucker Carlson is leading. That's why they back Azov. That's why all of the extreme right is all coming to the forefront. Donald Trump's election, and now it's coming back again, is because fascism is capitalism decay. Fascism is the final solution of capitalism when they get backed into a corner. Is just go full Westerner. Just go full Western barbarism. And just be like, you will not replace us. We will wipe you out now. Right? That's why they backed Shinzo Abe. Because he was the Japanese version of that. We have to wipe out the Chinese, and we have to, like the Ainu and the indigenous people of Okinawa, the Luchuan and Ryukyu people, they don't exist. Japan is one people, and my great-grandfather who committed genocide, that wasn't a genocide. And we're gonna make great the Japanese empire again. And we're gonna take great, and the US needs that, because that's the East, that's the Chinese West Coast fist in. And Ukraine and Germany, right, in the 40s, but now it's Ukraine mostly, are the Europe fist in to the countries that are, you know, Soviet Union also had better women's rights and respect for LGBT. They're not perfect. None of these places are perfect, but you know, they're actually like countries that were going communist and countries that were going socialist, etc. Hawaii was one of them. Hawaii had women's suffrage way before the United States, and women were treated. Well, they had healthcare. They had universal healthcare. A woman invented it. Ema kalani kamaka kaleleo nalani rook. Right. So the countries that were, so my point is kind of like, you know, it's not to say every time a country has socialism, it also has gender equality, also has respect, you know, it ends racism. But like those things are all happening integral, and they're all, each one of those are synergistic with each other. The success of anti-racism leads to success of social. Success of women's rights leads to increased LGBTQ plus rights and to increased prospects of economic equality, right? It's just because overall, right, it's about people's the structure and dialectical thing is, so the structures that exist in the world and the processes and the concrete realities of the world impact the minds and the mind states of the people who all impact each other in constant flux and change, right? Not static, right? So successes in one can lead to successes in other realms, and then defeats in one lead to defeats in other realms. And so the West is just a place that has had a 2,000-year winning streak of white, capitalist, patriarchal, trans and queerphobic, environmentally destructive barbarism. That's what it is, right? It just had I call it the unhealed descendants of the Aquilan Roman trauma, right? But it's not just Romans necessarily, but that's like a major one that hit Europe, and then Europe hasn't gotten better from that, right? But every time you make a win, you still improve, and all these things have to be fought together. They can't really go one at a time. Like a token, we're gonna get a win. That's also a mistake to view each of these disasters. Like this natural disaster is unconnected from the fight to have people's pronouns respected. It's actually not separable. The fight for economic equality is separable from racism. Just hold on, black people. Just hold on. Wait until white men get a $50, $100 an hour wage for working at the mining plant or the factory, and then we'll talk about you, right? Mistake. That's a constantly repeated. The capitalists and the white dudes, who are most of the capitalists, like Elon and Jeff Bezos, want you to make that mistake. They want you to make the mistake of like focus on this one thing, and then uselessly put your energy into nothing, right? Just doom around about climate all day, and then cry yourself to sleep. Just get upset about this and then do nothing. Think that you're gonna get your patriotic socialism as a white man, and that's gonna be it. And we gotta just silence women and people of color and trans people and LGBTQ plus people, right? That's a mistake. Even for the white men, that's a mistake. That's a mistake even for them, right? They just don't see it yet, right? A lot of them. Some of them do. A lot of them don't. So, yeah, so I think that, so Elliot Page is this, I would argue actually, the way that the United States, Canada, and the Western world comes through, again, the way they come through this fiasco, not to say that it's not really about Elliot, whatever you think about, Elliot's movies and Juno and whatever you think about Umbrella Academy and whatever you think about Jordan's books, that's not really the point. This is just a flashpoint. Like even, Red Hill is terrible and it's a horrible disaster. I talk about all the time, the U.S. military poisoning our Hawaiian water. But Red Hill the solution is not going to happen just because that thing gets defueled. What is the soul of every person in Hawaii, right? How will they be altered and changed by that experience? Because some people are pointing out. I'm glad that more people are pointing it out. Like this, Lima Hana is a new YouTube channel you should follow. And then there's some other people in the Hawaiian community are pointing out we don't just want Hawaiian independence. We want socialist, anti-capitalist Hawaii. We don't just want independent Hawaii that has billionaires owning all the resorts. That's not, it's not, and still has oppressed masses of people that can't survive with living wages. How does that actually, I mean, now the win against the U.S. empire as the biggest capitalist superpower, that's positive, but simultaneously, like I said, that's Red Hill is just a flashpoint, for people to hopefully start like really, really critically and thinking about everything in their life and doing the concrete actions, right? Doing the concrete actions, not just going, oh, I have fossil fuel in my $1 million Kailua house or my Kaneohe house or my Kaimuki house, right? I have fossil fuel. Again, like a lot of Hawaiians, like my own family, like I talk about it, it's very sad because my dad denies being a Hawaiian. My mom she doesn't really accept her Hawaiianness. She thinks she's ugly because she has curly hair that looks like an afro and she has dark skin and she tries to make her hair straighter and look and talk whiter like everyone else, it's sad. But then, and buys into Oprah stuff. She reads Oprah book club. I'm not saying you can't read Oprah or something, right? But just like, They buy into being liberal white Americans, and they feel bad for not being white enough. And they're you know, and so it's like, but then also that means that attitude means that you give in to the Democratic Party. You just say, well, we'll just vote and we'll fix things. And that has to be like, you know, they're not ready to address that stuff. And a lot of people on Oahu, it's really sad when I watch it. And a lot of people everywhere in Hawaii, not just Oahu, but that's a major focal point. That's where the richest are, and Maui as well. And but they have to address that internally, because if they can't address those issues internally, along with the issues, their own homophobia internally, their own child abuse. Dirty lickings is not Hawaiian. That's brought in by colonizers, right? Physical corporal punishment of children. Like I said, the way that you treat children, which is to beat on them, physically, corporally punish and spank and hit, right? That was not a Hawaiian practice. The kupuna were inside of the keiki. The children carried the spirit of the ancestors, the kupuna. And to strike a child would be like hitting your ancestors, right? Right? That is a practice for. It's when you do that to the child, you traumatize the person. Every time you hit someone, you don't just traumatize the person that is hit. This is the mistake of Western thinking. You think when you fight a war and you win the war, you've won and they've lost. When you engage in warfare and violence, you traumatize those people. Or violence, physical violence between two people, or violence between two countries. You both lose. This is the deeper wisdom of indigenous thinking, the Chinese thinking, the Turtle Island thinking, the Pacific indigenous thinking, South American indigenous thinking, and other, you know, in Africa they had different solutions for this, right? But this requires taking a longer view than just this moment and even this group. And you know, when you hit your child, you are striking your ancestors. You're striking yourself, right? This is what the native people at the DAPL pipeline, to stop the oil companies polluting indigenous water, right, would say to the SWAT cops: when you hit me, you hit yourself. When you hit me and you beat this woman, how are you going to look at your wife tonight and look at her in the same way? How are you going to kiss your children when you just beat a child? But the answer is like, well, I also beat my child and I beat my wife, right? The majority of cops are actually sexual and physical abusers. And, you know, majority of Hawaiians, sadly, a lot of them are cops in the military. And that culture of violence permeates that, overrepresented, right? And sadly, and alcoholism and all these things as part of a set of colonial behaviors. All that has to be internally addressed, all simultaneously. When you beat down on your children and your family members, you're practicing to be beaten down on and to beat down in a capitalist workplace. This is inseparable. When you are abusive, I mean, even verbally to your partner, you are practicing for being in an abusive structure in your workplace. When you go to a church that's teaching queerphobia and transphobia and calling itself in the light and perpetually putting itself as a good person and everyone else as sinful while being a horrible person, you are practicing to participate in Western media, Western propaganda, which is about putting Western civilization on a pedestal and everything from the East and from Africa as bad, uncivilized, savage, dark. You're preparing to imbibe war propaganda when you go to church, is what I'm saying. The mentality of there's the good and there's the bad, and based on arbitrary characteristics, is inseparable, right? That's inseparable in every realm: religious, spiritual, romantic, familial, workplace, voting place, right? Academia, right, etc. Academia is very feudal, right? That is preparing you to accept the structure of academia, which is that a lot of it's about saying the right thing and not saying the wrong thing, which is all in line with Western empire. It's in Western university system a lot of the time. Not saying the wrong thing about China right now is how you keep your tenure track, if there is any left. And also the 60-70% of college professors are already food insecure. So that is already broken and insecure structure, right? So the way academia treats its people, which is underpaid master students actually doing a lot of the teaching and starving, is preparing them to go into workplaces that are abusive, and also is, you know, it's everything is part and parcel and not separable. Not to say that you can't talk about, you know, spirituality today and then, you know, have your math class and then move on to your English class and then talk about, you know, home economics and then talk about, not that you can't separate and talk about different subjects, but to believe that to let's say hyper compartmentalize, meaning like to say that all these things are separate and not interlinked deeply is both a mistake of Western civilization, Western barbarism civilization, and also a tool that they use to maintain their own power structures. If everything were to become linked, then they would rapidly fall apart. It's like you have to ask yourself, how is it that 10 white guys can make $6 trillion or what, Elon alone made like $100 billion in 1 year in the last couple of years. Jeff Bezos made about 100 billion, right? I think Elon made more than he made like 160 billion in 1 year, right? How is it that a handful of these guys like Jordan Peterson can keep, don't think of it as don't think of it as Elon took 180 billion or 160 billion or Jeff took 100 billion, right? Think of it as you gave Elon Musk 100 billion by not realizing these things and not acting accordingly, right? By not taking the action, by not doing enough unionizing, organizing, general striking, undoing all of these at the same time, it's also like by not further supporting the trans, LGBTQ plus and women's rights and their not just the gender fight to be recognized. The pronoun is not really about the pronoun itself. The language is weird. The Hawaiian language and Chinese language don't have a gender specific pronoun. It's ta in Chinese and it's ya in Hawaiian, and in many Pacific languages. But it's not just about that. It's not that is a legacy of the cultures, I would argue. That's like shows it's both a legacy of the way of thinking, which was not putting genders above each other and allowing gender fluidity, a recognition of that in Hawaiian culture and in indigenous cultures of Turtle Island as well. It's a lot similar for many of them. But it's not just about the language alone, right? It's about the thing that you need is not to change the whole English language necessarily. What is needed is the acceptance of difference, right? And the not abuse and the not suppression of the rights of queer people, LGBTQ plus people, and women. And that's what the fight is actually about, right? Because it is people who have proximity to whiteness, white manness. Even as a trad wife woman, if you benefit because your husband is a millionaire oil miner or coal miner or something, or is connected to the Lockheed Martin or whatever, or the Wall Street industrial complex, right? Then you could have like the wives in the Handmaid's Tale. I know Margaret Atwood said some turf shit, but you could even be a woman, but because of your benefits of the patriarchal system, you're like, oh yeah, you go get it, Jordan. Tell those trans this and that, because you as the wife of that person are benefiting materially from that, at least economically, right? So you want to maintain that structure, right? Which is a whole other layer of reality, right? But and the other women like, I hate this thing. I don't care. I don't want to be viewed as lesser. But somebody's like, well, I'll just be the housewife. I'll be the pretty housewife as long as I get the 5 million, right? So like that. But what they're maintaining is like overall a structure of inequality. So that's what actually has to be addressed. But the part about like say your pronouns, right? Say your pronouns, like like for me it's like he, him, or they, them, right? I'm still like in a place that's it's still, I definitely don't identify as a cis straight guy. I identify as Native Hawaiian, and I can't say identify as Mahu because I feel like I don't feel like I don't feel confident there. But I do identify as being a queer person or a not straight cis person, and I use like they, them a lot of the time. But it's not just about the thing of say your pronouns before. It's about normalizing the concept of saying it so that people have of just like announcing your pronouns, so that people that are not, so that to build a new culture, to start to normalize a new way of existing in English language, right? I mean, it's got problems. English language is a language in detox. It's like an alcoholic. I'm like Barbarians Anonymous. We've been hurting and abusing women, LGBTQ plus people, brown and black people, and everyone, and poor people and working class people for the last 2,000 years. And sorry, I'm a drunk, fucked up language that has super weird genderfied language. I'm so sorry. Civilization doesn't mean anything because we use it to identify Britain and America and France, and they're not civilized. They commit genocide. Anyway, so we're like, it's a fucked up language. But you just gotta like, okay, well, let's try to like normalize respecting people's pronouns as a part of a project to respect people. So that's actually what's important. It's not just, okay, you're missing the point. It's not just a fight about pronouns. It's a fight about respecting queer people. It's a fight about respecting human people as human and also as equal and also not one better than the other. Because the thing is, Elliot Page represents, right? Because if people who are socially identified as women and then they socially identify and now they're socially identified, internally, externally as not women or men or vice versa, then that breaks a lot of the hierarchy, which is necessary to as I said, each of them reinforce the other. So the sexism reinforces the racism, reinforces the capitalism, reinforces the colonialism and imperialism, reinforces all these structures. Then if there's somebody who transits between two of them, it's like running across the Berlin Wall. It's like breaking up. It's like taking a brick out of the taking a brick out of the wall between West and East Germany, right? No, you cannot do that because we have to separate, right? It's like somebody, it's like somebody refusing to go to work, right? Crossing that line, even just coming out as gay, queer, etc., and not being, I'm stuck in my gender binary, is like somebody going on strike, right? And if a lot of people do it, it's like, oh no, wait. How are we going to keep capitalism up if 90% of the people that are the labor producers aren't refusing to work for the person who takes 90% of all the labor value and gives you just enough to come back tomorrow, right? So it's kind of it is like there's some people, a lot of the LGBTQ plus communities, now is the best time to be even more openly out and gay and not straight, right? And in your face about it, because what they want is everyone to just go back and disappear. And it's kind of like stop striking. If you're somebody who is worried about your wages and you would like to be your fair labor value to be given to you in a capitalist workplace like a Walmart or wherever you are, right? It's like everybody just go home, stop striking. Everybody just go back to work. Just go back to work and everything will work out, right? It's like telling LGBTQ plus people just Pride Month's over, go back in the closet. Just go back in the closet, okay? Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and Burger King made a lot of money putting a rainbow flag on their rockets, missiles, oil companies, and their hamburgers. And they made a lot of money, and now go home. Just, stop striking. Stop water protecting. Right? Stop, just go back to civilized, normal society, be civil. Civilized, normal society. Just go home. Right? So this is actually very important, I think. Because if this, it's like if these people, it's more just like queer people just keep being more out there, So that's why I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm always, I've been trying my best. I'm routinely changing gender presentation in the streams because I like to do it. See, the weird in for me was actually like the glam metal and the rock and actually I'll show a little bit of my old Hawaiian language teacher later on, who was actually, I don't know what he identifies as. My Hawaiian. He's actually Hawaiian Filipino, and he's actually part Indigenous. I think he's Aztec is what he was. My guitar teacher was a metalhead. He was like blazing fast metal guitar player. I found him on the YouTube, and a lot of rock and metal music, especially like that glam stuff, had a lot of like long hair and like Eddie from Stranger Things, right? Long hair, queer, not normal gender role type stuff happening. And I think that was like one of the first things, like, that guy looks real. That's a dude, but he has long hair and he looks really cool. And he has lots of cool metal, and he doesn't look like a normal civilized person. So I was like, I want to be like that dude, and I want to play guitar like him. I want to play Master of Puppets, and I want to play King Diamond and speed metal and Buckethead and all that fun stuff. And also, I don't think I want to just like always look like a man under Western, gender norms. I think that was actually, I think about it now, I was like, that was actually one of the things. That's why I go into like performance, I call it performance mode, because that's what I would perform as. When I perform in music. I used to perform at like clubs in Honolulu, and On King was in downtown Chinatown. I'm from Chinatown, by the way. It's like the region of Chinatown is Kalipolama, all that. It's really the old Asian and Pacific Islander place where they assimilated to survive Western capitalists and genocide under U.S. occupation. But I used to perform at these shows and clubs, and I had different bands downtown in the night. There's like the night markets and different venues, and I would always perform with this particular presentation that was like, it's more like a glam rock. It's close to glam rock, but part of it was like, it was almost like, under U.S. cis heteronormative occupation of Hawaii that made Mahu into a bad word, right? It made it into a word that meant something offensive, like Kumuhina, another trans person from Hawaii, has a great important stories about that. But Mahu was not a bad thing. Mahu is just third gender, right? It was just the norm. It became bad because third gender people in Hawaii Mahu were bad, and they were third gender indigenous people were the ones that were the first on the chopping block or the burning pile of wood, let's say, which is what they would do. Watch Twin Rabbits, a queer indigenous Thanksgiving to learn about that, because they were both simultaneously the people whose land had to be expropriated. Indigenous people were communists, and also they didn't have strict gender roles to have the patriarchy to reinforce all the racism, the colonialism, and the capitalism. So they were the first to be killed, were the queer, non-binary indigenous people. They also happened to be the people that were very venerated and carried a lot of the culture and the practices of the people inside of them. They were great, important leaders. They were well respected, right? I don't think it is a mistake. It's not a mistake. It is not a coincidence that the people because part of it is because to be somebody who is non-binary, it's really the people who go between worlds. It's kind of what, there's a word, I forget the word in an indigenous Turtle Island language. To be again, English fails at this. It can't really describe Mahu or Two-Spirit, right? But there's a word that means the people who go between worlds, right? But it's really, if you think about it, you're going between the world of the masculine, right, or men's world, right, or the smoking jacket club in the Western, the old boys network, right, and then you have the women's world. I mean, that's the Western conception. I mean, there's other aspects of what is masculinity, but then you have the men, you have the kind of the masculine world, and you have the feminine world, and there are like differences between like different aspects of each, and none of them are like, to be a woman you have to be feminine, you have to be this and this and this, but there are differences in a lot of cultures. But and people have different, wahine and kane is two different like ways of the energies, right? The word for, like, just an example, the word for parent, makua, in Hawaiian is a single gender neutral word, and then there's makua wahine, the parent with feminine energy, or at that time has feminine energy, is the makua wahine, right? That's the mom. And again, it's fluid in that sense, right? And then the makua kane is parent with masculine energy. So you could have because you could have a Mahu parent, and it's the one that is constantly working, is between the two worlds, right? So those people who could see between the two worlds, many of them would have great wisdom to share with the people because they are far seeing a lot of the time. Not as a guarantee you're going to be some kind of great guru because you're a non-binary Mahu or other person, but there are people that like are unique in that way, but it's not bad, right? It's not like they have to be wiped. See, the indigenous people, this is another way I'm talking about win-win cooperation and coexistence, right? Or the game of Go. It's really about the game of Go played through gender. You're not like the men, and you're not like these people who are born with these things, or these people who are presenting themselves in this way. You're not like these people, these men or these women. You're something else. But see, the Western unhealed, broken way is to go, you're different. Let's kill it with fire, right? Like, let's just destroy it. Let's conquer it. Let's figure out how to make money from it or wipe it out if it gets in our way, right? But the goal, to use a Chinese metaphor, the win-win cooperative way to approach that is to go, you're different. How can we work together to mutual benefit, right? How can you, a different third gender that I don't understand it fully. But like, obviously you're you're a person like us, and like, how can we work together? The you see what I'm saying is the immediate approach, the reaction is like, well, you come from the earth like us, and you number one, you have to like kind of assume agency into things, and assume mutual respect for everything, right? It's not that everything deserves. Some people, like Nazis, don't deserve that respect, but because they're actually hurting everyone else, right? But it's like, you're different, and so I don't understand it. But like, how can we work together so that we can both benefit from this? You can see things between men. You can tell people across these different worlds things that they can't see inside of their world, right? Maybe things that they need to know but that they don't know right now, right? You can see outside, and you can like observe things in a different way that we can't. So why don't we learn from you, right? Why don't we learn from you, the Mahu Kumuhina? Kumu means teacher. Why don't we learn from you, Kumu teacher? Why don't we learn from you, wise two-spirit indigenous queer person? And then we will all benefit from your wisdom, and you will benefit by having a loving society to exist in, right? But that's like part of the. It's not really like Hawaiians and indigenous people made this queer identity so that they could like. It's not really. It's like the way of existing with nature and with women also impacts the way they are going to exist with the queer people, which is like mutual respect. Nature is here. Like, this plant is growing. How can I work with this plant, right? Now, how can I devastate this land, monocrop it, and put straight rows of corn that are exactly the way for the maximum profit of the whitest man in this neighborhood, and then there's a global man who is doing imperialism. It's like, how can I work with this plant, this sweetgrass, right? This corn, the three sisters in indigenous teaching, this corn, this squash, this bean. How can they work together in the indigenous agricultural practices to grow the corn that allows the sprout to kind of circumambulate, or kind of, there's a special word that means to grow in a circle around the corn, and the bean sprout sister hugs the tall straight growing sister that gives you a stalk to grow, and the squash sister keeps out the pests. So the three sisters mutual cooperate in nature, and that's why you get three seeds, right? For this, it's a style of agriculture, and I forget, it's a Potawatomi. Is it Potawatomi? I might be misremembering. It's from Brady Sweetgrass, but the three sisters, when they cooperate together in this regenerative structure, produce more food together than they would alone for the people, that will feed more people than they would monocropping, and it maintains the agricultural, the nutrients in the land, and maintains equilibrium of the soil and the water for thousands of years, or indefinitely, basically. So the cooperation, but you see what I'm saying? You corn, you're different from me, pumpkin. For me, the pumpkin. You bean sprout, you're different from me, the corn. How can we work together to cooperate, right? And it's also like let's say the plants had been doing that in places. The indigenous people observed it, and then they applied that. They connected with the plants, and to connect with the plants and reconnect and encourage connections between the plants, and they're striving to grow individually and work together for mutual benefit, right? As opposed to when the West shows up in Turtle Island, let's wipe everything out, the people and the plants, and force our way upon it. And now what? 300 years later, the entire place is falling apart, right? So that's like, but the approach is similar, which is that like, what you are different. That's okay. Like, number one, that's like lesson number one. You are Asian. You're not bad, right? But that, right? Just think about it. Asian or China. Oh my God. Terrible stuff. You're different. That's okay. I don't fully understand you. That's also okay. You might not fully understand everything, right? The white man tendency is to know everything. If you don't, and you don't. If you know something and you can lie to benefit yourself, you lie. And if you don't know something, pretend like you know it. Accept that you don't know that thing. But ask, how can we work? But you say, okay, you're different, but you're also a thing that deserves respect. And also, nature or people. You're different and you deserve respect. How can we work together for mutual benefit? In every sense, in every aspect of reality, right? And so that's where, like, I mean, coming back to this, so I'm kind of off of the Umbrella Academy, but that's where this fight is about. Will Western culture, will the Anglo world, right? As somebody who speaks English and was Westernized, or was forced indoctrinated into Western culture and Western American thinking, right? That also is for myself, right? Will the United States and Canada be able to learn how to accept the differences of people that do not perform the strict gender binary, or will they, it's like, will the strike succeed or will the strike fail, right? Will Oahu water protectors will succeed, or will Oahu fall into this? Will it just become a waste site and a place that the U.S. military stops off to go on the next bombing run with no civilian population? Because there's not going to be water soon. So, I mean, but that's not. I mean, I try my best, but that's not ultimately. That's up to the people of Oahu, altogether. Me as a native Hawaiian and somebody as part of Hawaii, but I tried my best to platform this thing, but it's ultimately people of Oahu that will have to decide that, and that also includes: are you ready to lose that $2 million valuation of your Lani Kai house? Because that's what it's going to take in the short term and the longer term. Are you prepared to end the capitalism that gives you that fancy, access to that fancy golf course that you don't need, right? Are you ready to give up on law and culture? Are you ready to respect your mother? Because if you can't respect the Earth Mother, if you can't respect your Earth Mother, how do you expect to exist on the island? It's nice weather. Doesn't matter if you don't have any water supply. If you can't respect your Earth Mother will not tolerate that indefinitely. That's also a call out to all the dudes in the Western world, especially like 30 to 50, 45-year-old dudes. There's a lot of useless dudes out there. And not useless, but you have like failed to. That's a lot of the YouTube audience, 30 to 50-year-old dudes. It's also the Reddit 4chan. I know, because there are a lot of people that I hung out with. That was me for a lot of the time, being a shitty dude, just like taking advantage of other people's care work, taking advantage of other people's, my own parents to some extent, just taking advantage of not like not acknowledging other people and not treating other people and not taking ownership and responsibility, right? And it's like, are you prepared to participate in win-win cooperation in your own households and not take for granted women and non-men's care work, household work, and also like making money work and that kind of stuff, which is like, that's why it's like there's not a lot of dudes getting partners anymore. Like the 35 to 45 years, there's not a lot of them getting partnered anymore. Like the ones that are, they already had partners. And it's like, and now they're all upset that they're never going to get laid because there's too many trans women, or the women are all disappearing. It's like the women aren't disappearing. You just like, they will not tolerate mediocre and abusive men the way the 1950s to the 2010s tolerated that, which was never acceptable. Is part of the way to think about it. But then it's like, women are killing video games. Or Nita Sarkeesian, the SJWs are killing my movies. This thing. Women are cancer. No. Women are just like asking, and more firmly asking for respect, like the woman that is Mother Nature, Pachamama, Papa, you name it, Hawaiian culture, right? The women are asking for mutual respect, not one-way subservience of them to your benefit and your blowjob and your cooking and your cleaning, and now you want them to work for you too, because you don't want to get a job. You want to like play video games and do nothing all day, and then the women do all the work, and that's what's happening in a lot of relationships. And then you listen to Jordan Peterson, who just says, well, all you gotta do is demand women go back in the kitchen. And it's like, women are too busy having relationships with other women and non-men to go back into any kitchen for you. So that's why it's like there's a statistical plummeting of dudes, and then they're all falling off. Like lots of dudes that worked on even my own video games, they're not around anymore. I mean, it's extremely sad. I don't really want to talk about it too much because it's not really my point. But they're not around anymore because, and they would complain about like two guys who worked on Neofeud and Terminus Machina, two of my video games in the gaming culture. It's one of the most toxic cultures. they would complain that their mothers and their girlfriends weren't doing enough for them while they were like jobless, or I remember one of them would just keep complaining, like, I'm too tired to work today. I'm too sleepy to work today. I can't work. I'm too sad to work today. And it'll be like, why don't I have a girlfriend that does this work for me? It's like, dude, women are not going to tolerate somebody who only demands other people to work for them while they don't meet 50% of the way, you know? That's why you don't have a loving relationship with a girlfriend or whatever friend and the children in your life that you want to have. I wish I had, like my dad had children and a family. Why don't I have that? Why don't I have that? Let me just play fucking WoW and, I don't know, D&D for the next, I mean, not to show shade at that game, but, you know, let's just play video games and let's just play games for the next fucking 5 years straight. And then claim that I'm tired. I asked for like programming for this thing, and that's why I don't work with a lot of people on my own games, because I'm like, I don't really want to work with dudes too much. I'm like, you know, not just them. I don't want to work with people like that, or so people who are socialized as men under Western capitalist patriarchal America, because those people, they don't seem to want to. They don't want to meet me halfway. I'm like, I'm doing like, I'm making streams, I'm making games, I'm making like 3 different games at one time. I'm working on I'm making an album I'm going to put out soon. I'm like, I'm doing like all this work. I can't have people coming and going, I want to be a game maker too, Silver Spook. And they're like, well, can I just like be tired half of the time and just drop off the map for 2 weeks? No, you can't do that. You can't do that. Do I do that? I don't do that. Why? I don't deserve to work with somebody. I'm going to meet them with 120%. And you're going to come with 3%, or you're going to come with 80% for 1 week or 2 weeks, and then you're going to fall off the map and you're going to drop out to 3%, and you're just going to be sad. Because you would say, I'm sad. I'm depressed. My mom didn't make my Hot Pockets right. I'm depressed. Like, hey, man, you know, as somebody who was socialized as a man, I know what it's like, because I was socialized as a man, and I was shitty. I was a shitty, like, Mom, why isn't this, you know, my auntie was somebody who was like, you know, really spoiling type person. Who was like, I want this food, this, and that, you know, but like, I had to get past that. You got people go, Silver Spook, how do you have a loving family and Holly is a, you know, you have your a loving relationship, you've been together, you have 2 kids, and you guys are doing really good. How do you do that? Well, part of it is I had to get over being a selfish fucking little man child. That's part of it, you know? So I'm not saying that to like belittle people. I'm just saying like that is like, again, that is part of the process, right? Along with meeting your LGBTQ plus people 50% of the way and not being a dick to them, which is also deep in the CD Projekt Red, etc. It's also like meeting the other genders, the other part of the way, you know? Or you cannot, and then you can just disappear. Like the other 2 guys they're not alive anymore. They died in their 30s. And like, that's just sad, you know? It's disappointing. I wish that it wasn't the case. I wish I could come out and say like everyone is doing amazing whoever worked on my games. But the truth is, dudes who played a lot of video games like me and were socialized in the millennial age dudes, and Boomer and Gen X have their own problems, but especially like millennial age dudes and people who still identify that way, and the ones that are like Gen Z. Not to say if you stop identifying as dude, does it make you fixed? I know people that identify as not dudes anymore, and they still have a toxic approach. They still have that messed up approach to everything. And even though they're like they're non-men or they're women now, but they still have that wrong approach, which is the world owes me everything. And my partner owes me everything. My mommy owes me everything. And it's like, your partner owes you 50%. And you owe the other 50%. That's called win-win cooperation. Right? But that's an incorrect attitude of a lot of people who call themselves communists and socialists. And some of them even have land back sometimes in their bios, and all kind of other stuff in their bios, right? And it could identify any way. It could be not white, all these things. But if your approach is still, everyone else, my partner, the world, my job, my boss, my career, my this, owes me 99%, and I can just check out whenever I feel like it, right? You failing to, you understand, you're still playing chess, you know? You're still playing capitalism. You're still playing whiteness. You're still playing, you know, you're still not to say that everybody, like, if you're like literally like you physically, I cannot you know, do X and Y and Z. Like, I can't do things. I cannot stand up. I cannot type in a position where my arms are out for more than 2 hours at a time. So I have to like adjust to that. I've got all kind of health problems too, right? But it's like, the attitude is like, okay, well, I gotta like recalibrate and figure out new ways to do the things that I'm doing to continue to meet everything else in win-win cooperation, despite the ailments, you know, and not just like put it off on other people. It's more about the attitude, right? It's right. It's about the attitude of like, you owe me something, right? Women owe me sex, right? Women owe me sex, and I should have a government-assigned girlfriend. That was one of the incel, right, arguments. All the Jordan Peterson people, right? It was like, the women, Anita Sarkeesian is destroying video games, and they're talking about male power fantasies, and that's totally good. We just watched the movie Free Guy, which is pretty good in that sense, because there's a female game character who becomes sentient. And it's like, why am I always just like, you're so hot, to some white dude in glasses with a giant gun, right? And I get dropped into a sports car, and I have to just like be a supermodel in a red dress, hugging on with like fake boobs, hugging on some dude, telling him how hot he is while he blows up people in the street with his RPGs and his AK-47s and collects loot, right? Which is toxic game culture that reflects toxic Western culture. It's really, it's digital colonialism. It's digital imperialism. It's digital white male supremacy in the games. And that culture, and then that's part of what generates a lot of these 30 to 45-year-old gamer dudes who expect the women in their life to be like video game women, right? Which is like falling over them while they just don't do anything but sit around and play video games, right? And that's not how the world works. I mean, that was how America worked, where you could be a mediocre or sub-mediocre white man and have 1.5 kids, a lawn, and a house, and a Thunderbird, right? While just showing up and schmoozing in the office, and the women and the black and brown people had to do work for you in the 50s and the Stepford Leave It to Beaver era. And that's what a lot of the dudes that worked on my games would complain about. They'd be like, my dad had a great job at Microsoft, and now, he made $120,000 a year. I deserve that job. He had a beautiful wife and a job and a lawn. And Silver Spook, why don't I have that job? I just want to I have a degree in programming and blah, 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 blah. Why don't I have a job? I'm feeling sad today. I'm just going to go cry today. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. The world capitalism is eating America more than it used to. Nobody really deserved any, nobody was just owed all of that. It's like, you got to work. You got to meet the people halfway. You got to meet your would-be girlfriend at least 50% of the way. Learn the art. What is it? It's like, what is that show? It's like Finish Her. It's like a Mortal Kombat reference. It's like Finish Her, a book to tell cis straight dudes how to actually make women get orgasms and stuff. It's like, you can't just be expecting women, Mother Nature, your workplace, and everything else, the world to give you communism. The attitude is never going to lead to, the attitude is part and parcel of what we're talking about. The attitude in the United States is never going to lead. Even understanding that communism is better than, capitalism sucks and communism is good. That alone, without demanding communism from everyone and the world, passively, has not and will not result in the end of the capitalism, right? It will result in you dying like my former game dev coworkers. That's what's the result. I watched it result in that, sadly. So, and also that doesn't result in a world anyway. So you see what I'm trying to get at. Is that we have to approach all of these things, right? And at the same time, we have to approach simultaneously. That doesn't mean don't get educated about socialism and communism and what's happening environmentally, what's happening politically and socially, right? It doesn't mean don't get educated about those things. It means that you get educated about those things, right? And share that. And don't share in a way that makes everybody doom or out. Come with solutions. Don't come with there's problems. Because when you throw a whole bunch of problems at people, right? And you just go these are problems. Now, if you're throwing problems saying the U.S. military is illegally occupying Hawaii, we have to stop that illegal occupation, right? I mean, that's one thing, right? But if you just the world sucks and this sucks and this sucks and this sucks and oh no, I'm gonna get hit by a wildfire. Oh no, there's a hurricane. Oh no, there's a fire here. Oh no, that this is which is what you see a lot. This is what they want. This is what they want you to do. Is to just kind of panic and kind of complain and cry and fall into a kind of self-absorptive downward spiral, right? Like I already said, I watched multiple, mostly men, not all white. One of them was white, and a few of them not white, fall into, and then they died. I don't know how else to put it. They're not around. They're not around. Like their health went, and their body went, and everything went, and COVID-19 showed up, and and even if they're still, some of them are still around, but they're like husks of humans, some of them, and like I don't want that for them. I don't want that for anyone. Like I said, I don't want Jordan Peterson to be a husk of a dude over there, like, still complaining about the feminist conspiracies and the feminist destruction of his. I don't want Jordan Peterson to be over there, whining and self-destroying, and also destroy, of course, as somebody who impacts culture in Canada and the United States, right? He is an incredibly corrosive force, right? Because he enables all those men, all those mostly white men, but not all white, I know this, and I know Holly knows this, right? There's people in Holly's family, like I said, conservative Christian, white Canadian culture, who are enabled by him, right? Like one of these people, somebody in Holly's circle, literally bought 10 copies of Jordan Peterson's book. That's $700, and he gave it to every one of his family members and some friends, right? And he's somebody who's he's now a landlord, or a wannabe landlord. He is like abusive to his own wife, who is a Stepford wife, that like the kind that Jordan Peterson talks about. And he is like doing the opposite of land back. He's trying to make as much money exploiting the dying Canadian landmass to charge exorbitant rent, right? And he was direct. I can say that's one person that was directly impacted by the words of Jordan Peterson, right? Just as one of the people, but he's one of the primary because he's also a white Canadian man, right? Out there for the trucker support, go trucker rally kind of guy, anti-mask and all that stuff, But each one of these things, importantly, it's like, but that's that attitude of like, this world owes me something. You owe me something. Women owe me sex. Women owe me marriage. Women owe me arm candy. They have to look the way I want them to, right? The way that you treat women, right, is also reflected, right? Indigenous people, right? However you want to express yourself, right? If you want to have your hair short, long, in braids, you do that. You want to be not masculine or feminine, you want to be in between, two-spirit, you do that. And then if you want to have sexual relationships, if you're attracted, then you do that, and if you don't, then you don't. But nobody is like the Indigenous approach, at least when not, kind of corrupted by Western colonialism in like traditional Hawaiian and Indigenous Turtle Island, especially Indigenous Turtle Island, from what I understand, is like, if but it's not forcing the other person to express the gender this way, right? So that's like, women have to be blonde bombshell supermodels, or, they're like, what's stopping you from looking like this? All those memes? What's stopping you from looking like Stacy from the incel memes, which is just gamer millennial man culture, right? What is stopping you from looking like, I don't know, a 80s porn, or a Pornhub body from 2002 or something, right? What is stopping you from looking like this? But what that is making demands of other people to alter their body, right? That's what, that's something. I remember Holly asked me like a long time ago, like, is it okay if I change this about my appearance? Is it okay if I shave my head? Or is it okay if I change my hair color? And my first thought was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I was somebody who had all kind of toxic bullshit in my brain, like I already said. But I think at that point, I had already figured out I gotta stop just like living at mommy and daddy's and just like asking for shit and not doing shit, or not doing enough shit. So I was already like, and I was like, but there's something else. There's aspects of Indigenous culture that kind of permeate even through colonization and forced English and banning Hawaiian language. But I was like, why? I mean, my thought was like, why, what? I mean, if you want to change your hair color, I mean, change your hairstyle. I mean, it's not really my, I mean, I am your partner, husband, but it's not really my choice, right? It's not my body. It's not like, when I was thinking about it, but it's assumed, right, in Western civilization, that the women's body is the property, right? It is the property right? Private property, like the mother is your property, right? And whatever the man says, your body is to be altered into that shape, that hair color, that, skinnier, fatter, different curves. If it costs $3,000 to get boobs, you got to pay that money. That's kind of ridiculous. Think about the women's body shapes. Like, that's not a normal body shape, right? And actually, the Sports Illustrated, thing with Jordan Peterson was like, I don't care what is it Jordan Peterson said, right? He said about the Sports Illustrated, right? Lee's Twitter after he said, I don't care what you say, right? I can't read that one. See if I can get it bigger. Not the ideal of athletic beauty. Dr. Peterson doubles down on criticism of plus-size Sports Illustrated model. Says in his words, confused gay kids are being convinced they're transsexual. Okay, anyways, so he anti-woke Canadian psychologist Jordan Peterson has defended a tweet where he said a plus-size model in Sports Illustrated was not beautiful because he doesn't think she is the ideal of athletic beauty. You probably have seen this already, right? Then Peterson said, sorry, not beautiful. No amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. Authoritarian tolerance. Anyways, but the thing is, like, actually, this is actually important. I think it was Zhang Yu, who is a Chinese, Taiwanese, which is Chinese communist, said, before, during in the Soviet Union, the communist Russia, there was lots of like, Big Babushka was the normal model of, it's kind of like a woman that is like more sturdily built and just like an average woman shape was the norm, and you see that on the posters in the communist propaganda and just the communist images, right? Everything's propaganda one way or another. But it's like that was the norm of the society. And then when the capitalism came in, all of a sudden you see these like, Sports Illustrated, the other Sports Illustrated, like supermodel, Western beauty standard, giant boob Russian mail order wife images everywhere, right? But, because part of that is because Western culture, one other thing is that, beauty standards change over time depending on what the capitalist, male-dominated, male-owned clothing corporations want to oversell, right? A lot of capitalism was about black, indigenous genocided land, right? Carolinas, South United States, or a lot of the United States. Indigenous genocided land with black slave planted cotton, right? That is being harvested and sent to London, the Anglo mother, the Anglo dark, disgusting parent of the United States. And then that is creating clothing in the textile factories, right? With all of the rebelling Luddites, etc., and the looms, that is then produced for maximum profit in the clothing industry. It's also why they fought opium wars and subjugated China, right? Was because they wanted the silk and the tea and the things that the silk, right? The clothes that they couldn't produce. But anyway, my point is that like the clothing industry and also the fashion industry and the diet industry, which are all interconnected, require constant altering and shaping of the ideal woman's body type to sell another 25 pairs of polka dot or polka skirt designer clothes, right? Because if everybody has one set of clothes that works and body shapes don't change that much, which they usually don't, right? If you're not doing yo-yo, up and down, diet pill, lose weight and then gain weight, lose weight and gain weight and change, if you're not doing that, then you might buy one set of clothes for a year or 2 years, or a few sets of clothes, which is what the communist countries would often do. I had like kind of crypto communist Ukrainian relatives that were like the ones that came before Canada's influx of the far right, right? The Nazi Ukrainians, and they had like one set of clothes, they had one couch, they had different, they didn't wear the same thing, but they weren't like going through all these fads, which is about buying 50 times more clothes, which also coincidentally burns the planet because you're over consuming resources as you're doing fast fashion, etc. Right? So women's bodies, so you can see the intersection of all of those things: the capitalism, the colonialism, the racism, the sexism, the misogyny, the control of women's bodies. And you're going like, your body has to look this way. Why? Because, well, we need to sell more clothes. And also, just in principle, right, the patriarchy requires women to be subservient to men and as personal sex vending machines, or not really vending machines, sex depositories. And the body shapes are like unreal. Number one, they were always unrealistic, right? They're always like not really realistic. It's not really what bodies normally look like. Which, you know, you can think about it. Imagine if you want to sell fitness, gym, capitalist, 24-hour fitness subscriptions, right? You got to buy these expensive weights. I'm not saying you shouldn't lift weights or go to gyms, but I'm just saying, right? And the reason why a lot of these body images were projected at the time was you could make a lot more money selling the shift in the body images, which you need. You got a whole new set of clothes. You got to get a whole new set of equipment. You got to get an ab cruncher. You got to get a treadmill. You got to get a Bowflex. You got to get, right? That's a lot of capitalism, right? There's a lot of the not really one body image. It's about the shifting of body images to go up and down, increases the total expenditures of people for the products, the teas, the diet supplements, right? The equipment, the new clothes, you change size, you got to get new clothes. Oh, you got big, you got to get new clothes. You got what? Right? The control of the ideal body norms by a capitalist patriarchy, both for the individual men's gaze and sexual benefit, as well as the capitalist profits at the same time, which are synergistic or downward spiral, if you think about it that way, which also is destroying Mother Nature herself, is actually, all of that is actually playing out as Jordan Peterson is talking about. That's not beautiful, no amount of authoritarian tolerance. Jordan Peterson is a stand-in for Western civilization. He is saying what a lot of white men are. They're not all saying it the same. Well, a lot of them are. Some of them are racist, but he's just somebody at the forefront right now, right? But he is without control over, without control over women's bodies, and which is also working with control over the fashion and the capitalist industry, and it benefits them massively. And also, the women who are also subservient to men, which is part of one of the very important in a hierarchy of peoples, right? The subservience of women, and beneath them the subservience of black and brown people, right? And it's this is a fight. This is a fight. The fight over what it seems like, it's just a Sports Illustrated cover. It is a fight over over Western civilization, Western capitalist, heteropatriarchal, cis heteronormative barbarism and self-destruction, like the two guys that died working on my games. That is a microcosm of what the people of this Western patriarchal world are doing. They are slowly self-annihilating. It's accelerating, but the options are very clear now. Hopefully it's more clear. It's going to get more clear as we go along. So, but hopefully it's becoming very clear, which is that, but kind of come back when Holly asked me, like, wait, Silver Spook, Chris, is it okay, husband, if I change my hair color or my hair length? Is because in Western culture, Christian and otherwise, patriarchal culture, it is assumed that your body is the possession of the man and a woman's body is a possession of the man, and you must get the okay, like a worker has to get okay of the boss to leave early, right? Like you have to get the okay of your commanding officer, to go on shore leave when you're not blowing up Iraq or Afghanistan, right? In this hierarchical structure that is military industrial complex. Like you have to get permission from somebody who arbitrarily, why does that guy have power over your body, right? But that's the question that women were asking. That's the feminist cancer is when women just ask to be, right? But indigenous culture, is like, well, if you want to change your body, you change your body. That's, I might, it's different, but I can't make that decision for you. That's not really, right? But that was like my thought. It was like, I can't make that decision for you because like, that's not my body. And it's not like, I don't own you. I married you. I don't own you. I married you. I don't own you. Like there's all kind of other toxic shit I think and still think, still think, and I have to try to not think those things. But like one thing I was just like, that didn't make any sense to me. But partially is because my mom also has like toxic Western diet. She's constantly trying to lose weight, and she's always talks about herself being too fat. Her hair is too kinky. Her skin's too dark. She didn't really say that, but she thinks it. I think she doesn't even recognize how she has like kind of like self-hate of her own non-whiteness as a Hawaiian woman who looks like she looks closer to Oprah than a white woman. Let's just say that. So she looks like she would be identified as black in a lot of the United States. So but still she does assert herself in other ways. Like I couldn't, like that's why I was like I couldn't picture my dad and my mom interacting that way. But I think a lot of that is just this kind of like there's still like the equality of the genders and in the culture that came through that, you know. So anyways, but you know I think that yeah, so that's where like, you know, but that's just another one. That's like a lot. I mean, for the dudes that are like watching, like, oh, still Silver Spook, how do I have a successful, you know, independent cooperative game company and, you know, meet a nice girl or whatever person I want to meet and have a normal relationship or something, or have some kind of relationship instead of just being sad and alone, right? Well, I mean, I'm trying, you know, there's some things, you know, and just, you don't have to be like super amazingly productive. You have to produce everything all the time, right? But it's more like attitude that you bring to it, you know. It's the attitude, and then also the actions too, not just saying things. You got to do the thing concretely too, right, to the best of your ability, but you got to do the thing too. But you know, the attitude is like, are you coming with you owe me something, you know, like even when reply guys come into your thread or anywhere and they go, explain me this, why are you dressed that way? You are making a demand, right? You're implying that person owes you education. That person owes you, like, right? That's a boss mentality, right? When you do that, you're acting like a boss. You're acting like a white man. You're acting like a white dude married to, or a dude in socialized in Western culture, demanding stuff. Why did you change your hair? Explain yourself. Why did you this? Explain yourself. Why are you? What's stopping you from looking like this? Right? You're demanding other people do things for you. And when you do that, well, you got away with it for like the last 2,000 years in the West, you know, and for maybe 200, 300 years in deeply colonized indigenous people's brain in cultures. But you're not going to get away with that anymore. You can't just demand people do things. The attitude, right, of you owe me this and you owe me this and you owe me this and the world owes me that and this owes me that and the boss owes me that. America owes me communism. This, you know. You know, nobody actually owes you anything. Like, you owe other people things, and then they owe you back. You know, that's called win-win cooperation. You know, you show up and you go, hey, here's a gift, right? That's actually Hawaiian culture. But part of that is not just about giving a token gift, right? And token gifts don't help, right? But it's kind of like, here, it's a symbolic gesture that has to come with the weight of concrete cooperation. Here is a gift, right? And we want to trade with you, right? There's a lot of cultures, a lot of indigenous cultures, that's the thing. You show up, you bring a gift, like Hawaiian cultures, like that. A lot of indigenous Turtle Island cultures. Here is a gift. We come in peace and we come in cooperation, right? And we want to give you things. Not what? Hey, you. What can you do for us? You. Why aren't? Hey, this is my land. Get off of, you know. Hey, you. Give me my rent. You give me that. You cook me the food. Right? It's like, here, have something, and let's learn about each other. You don't have to be like us. It's okay. You know, like, if you want to change your hair color, if you don't identify as the gender norm of the current culture, that's okay. Here's a gift, queer person. How can we work together? Hey, potential possibly girlfriend, here's some things I'm going to do to help you. I'm not just doing that because I'm giving you flowers and roses because I want to have sex later. That's not that's the bullshit. Like that's the IMF loan version of dating. Here, have a rose. Now I'm going to have a personal sex slave for the rest of my life. No. Here, have some chocolate and I'll listen to you talk but not listen to you for 2 minutes. That's not it either, right? Oh, when the wife's talking, just pretend like you're listening. You know, I mean, I know I've even done that kind of shit, and it's terrible. So I can stop that. Otherwise, I won't have a wife anymore. So or any partners. So you know, you have to meet the people. But again, the way you interact with, again, I saw the IMF because you guys are not doing this properly. Well, here's an IMF loan and give us all your shit, pay it back. Here's $1 million worth of Bono concerts and $1 million worth of 2 schools and a hospital. Now give us $152 trillion, which is what Africa and the global South has given to the global North in the last 80 years, right? Here, I give you a rose, you give me a lifetime supply of sex and cooking and cleaning. Here, I give you what? What are you giving? What the thing is, that's the deal. It's like, at least for the Stepford wife era, the man could be mediocre and make $100,000 a year and then bring home the colonial imperial bread that is redistributing the global South wealth through American, offices and stockbroker jobs, and then the dude can come home, the white man dude can come home, vote for Republican, and give his wife the house, right? But the reality is like that was always a screwed up colonial arrangement, and but I mean at that time at least the women did get a house. Now it's like, well, the dude is demanding sex, but the dude has no job and he's not doing shit. So even more so. It's like, well, I mean, what's the point? I'm just gonna go out with a girl or a non-binary person. I'm not going out with no fucking dudes, man. These people are useless. Like literally. Which is and the solution is like not to, again, like I said, not to get upset and self-annihilate or attack women and trans people. I go full red pill 4chan Reddit. Like Elon Musk is also helping this along by going, everybody just become a CEO like me and buy Bitcoin, which also burns the planet, right? So and I don't know, become an entrepreneur, bro. That's also not a solution, right? None of these are solutions. The solution is like dudes get actually better, produce equal amounts of benefit. Don't demand people to alter their bodies. Give you sex whenever you fucking feel like it. Just like cooperate at a mutual level. That's gonna feel oppressive when you are used to expecting and demanding 90% for me, 10% for you relationships. You have to 50% is gonna feel hard, but it's no pains, no gains, right? Isn't that like a Jordan Peterson, Jim Bro saying? Right? Or Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Isn't that a saying, right? Well, it's going to feel a little bit of pain, and the gain is you'll have a planet to live on. America will not be burnt to a crisp, and you won't have everybody collapse into fascist garbage hellscape. And then China and the global South will pick up the pieces when you're done being ridiculous. Oahu won't just fall into the sea, and China will come over all the dead former two white inside Hawaiian capitalist $1 million house owners, and then they all die and they run away and then they collapse in a pile of their own failure to undo their own capitalism, racism, sexism, and self-indulgent cowardice. And the global South will come into Hawaii and they'll be like, oh, that's so sad that everybody failed. Everywhere else, that Europe, UK, there will be a sad wet rock, right? That's falling apart. Boris is all gone, and Japan will just collapse in and of itself. Hopefully it doesn't collapse. Japan, have to do, but all these places, they get to collapse in and of themselves. And one way or the other, right? The global South, the win-win cooperative world, that's most of the world, will come back and they'll just be like, okay, are you now that you so many of you have fallen apart and you're dead, right? Like my former incel game devs. Anyone who's left, and most of the people that are going to be left are going to be women and non-men's and the dudes who were able to fucking actually get it together, right? Not just clean the room. I mean, clean your room and then meet everybody halfway. You don't clean your room and then abuse people outside the house. Because Jordan Peterson, he likes to say, clean your room, but also had a very messy ass room, didn't he? A lot of the time in his own pictures. I mean, I'm not saying, because I'm somebody who, I'm not like, our room is not always looking the best. It's not just about cleaning the room. It's about taking responsibility. It's important for people to take responsibility for their own lives, which is some of the, if there's anything positive, it's like when he's saying man, you got to pull up their pants and you got to take care of your business and you this and that. And that's fine. But it's and also women have to go back in the kitchen and be subservient, and the woke SJW, this and that is destroying cancer, that's destroying Western civilization. That's all got to go, or you can just go away. You're already going away, so choose to just go away, or get better. That's the two options. You can just not be around in a variety of ways, or you can get better. But the Elliot Pages of the world, who never deserve to be treated like less than human people, the women of the world, the queer people of the world, the indigenous and black and brown people obviously never deserved any of that. The demons of the world, in collaboration with the witch women, right? Never deserved. No woman ever deserved to be thrown into a lake to see if she floated or sank, because whatever ridiculous reason the white Christian man made up at the time, no black or brown person deserved to be burned at the stake because they were a demon, or genocided, or enslaved because their skin color and they were called savage. No queer person ever deserved any of that mistreatment and transphobia, etc. The difference now, that was a theme last year, and it's a theme of my new album, is that the difference now is that it's not asking anymore. It's not asking to be nice anymore, right? Elliot Page is not really asking. Elliot Page is not asking Jordan Peterson for anything, right? The world, Mother Nature, women, queer people, Black and brown people, the global South, Asian peoples. We're not trying to hurt anyone, but we're also not gonna ask and plead for mutual cooperation and respect anymore. You know, you're gonna give it, or by your own hands, you know, and also we're just not gonna cooperate with you as you need. When you need the help's not gonna be there. You know, like when you need the help, oh, Mom, please clean my room for me. Oh, please, where's the indigenous people to help land back my wildfire-torn California? Well, maybe they're not going to be around to help you when you need it because you are a dick to them. Oh, no, where's all of the this? Where's the this and that? Oh, no, where's all of our financial fiat trade, global capitalist hegemony is falling apart? Oh, no, what are we going to do? Oh, no, the the global South, our tariffs are backfiring. Russia is not actually doing as bad, even though we're telling all people that we're winning in Ukraine and financially. Oh no, the world is cooperating. South and Central America is coming together under a global multipolar world. Socialism is coming about. Oh no, what do we do? Well, stop being a dick to the global South. Stop being a dick to the East. Stop being a dick to socialist countries. Stop being a dick and a liar to all those people. Stop being a dick to indigenous people inside. Stop being a dick. Stop demanding all of their stuff. Stop treating them like that, and you will survive. You'll have to do more actual work. You can't just smooze around the water cooler or jerk off and play video games all day. You know, I mean, you know, there was a time when I would basically mostly do that. You know, it's like, and I was like, you know, it's a depressing existence. It's not really a very positive thing. You know, it feels good a little bit. Oh, I love playing video games, just being permanently on vacation or sadcation. You know, I'm just going to be sad and play video games and sad and watch movies on Netflix. And I like watching movies on Netflix, but I don't watch them all day. You know, I'm just gonna take and die. I mean, that's how pathetic and sad is that? You know, that's incredibly sad and pathetic. But that's not just the attitude of some random 38-year-old. That's the attitude of the West, which is I take. I like Mike Pompeo. I lie, cheat, steal, and kill. That's what they train us how to do at the CIA. I just take. I don't do. I take. And then we fall apart. It is the individuals repeating a pattern that has repeated itself. That's the empire. They always talk about this Thucydides trap, and empires have a 250-year life expectancy and they fall apart. They grow and they grow and they grow and then they fall apart like a cancer, right? But the cancer is not good. It's not really a thing you want to be, right? Grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and then collapse, right? The Roman Empire grow and grow and grow and grow and take and then collapse. And the British Empire grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And now they're all like a sad wet rock. The Spanish, the French, the Babylonian, all of this, like that's, you know, that it leaves it. Like I've been there. I was trained to be a high frequency trading Goldman Sachs algorithm programmer. It leaves a deep, and I felt the energy that it would take to be that. It's like it is like doing a deal with the devil, which is a white blue-eyed guy who backs Ukraine and is a Democrat. The deal that it would take in your heart to become a Wall Street banker, like my parents actually said you should go do that. It would make a lot of money because they were internally colonized. They said that I should do that. Oahu, that's what everybody does. Everybody's like that. It's one of the most horrible places in the world. It's more Wall Street than Wall Street in a lot of ways. It's very sad. But the deal that it would take to become that, which is mean you have to go full Western, full barbarism, full capitalist, full, you know, you got to go. You just gotta, because I would have to go and like, I would literally participate in like, you know, doing basically super fast, like 1 trillion trades per second. And I was looking into this and it was like, what you're going to do is you're going to take billionaires' wealth and you're going to reinvest that wealth and with leveraged 60-to-1 loans and central bank money. And you're going to use that wealth to manipulate the price of wheat and grain and rice, speaking of food shortages, in places like Libya or I don't know, Egypt or wherever we need to be overthrown. And you're gonna increase capital investments and you're gonna make economies scream and you're gonna make billions for your bosses and the military is gonna blow them up. Well, they don't say that, but you know that's what's gonna happen. And we're gonna coup and we're gonna kill the leader of an African country, Gaddafi, and take away what would be communism in Africa. And the reward for that is you're gonna make $10 million a year. If you do it really well, it could be more than that. You know, maybe you have to make 200 grand, 300, 600, 800. But you know, all you got to do is just like participate in a way that's just about taking, and everyone else, even in Wall Street, is all trying to backstab each other. Take from everyone around you and give back nothing and demand everything from everyone. And I was like, oh my God, this is like so sick. I cannot do that, man. I don't know how anyone can do that. Like, it's just disgusting. Well, one way you can do it is you can get so drunk all the time that you don't think about it, or just be really ignorant, stupid, self-deluded, or just deluded, or just be evil and be a sociopath, psychopath. They say actually like you have 10 times more likely to be statistically to be a sociopath or psychopath on Wall Street, because it's what it takes to do that kind of stuff. So, anyways, but that's kind of off the topic. It's 1:00, but we were gonna have a panel today, but we're not gonna have it because a bunch of people unfortunately had to cancel. So we're gonna go a little bit longer. But now I'm gonna go a little bit into the actual gender norms of Hawaii, and I'm gonna tie this into a thread coming back to the gender stuff that we've kind of been off on for a little bit. Where is my little thread about? So speaking of Elliot Page and Jordan Peterson, so as Elliot Page controversy stirs, remember trans, non-binary, and gender fluid people are accepted in Hawaiian culture, like i.e. the Mahu people, and they play vital roles in our resistance against colonization and the U.S. genocide of Hawaiians. Binary gender is a Western imperial concept forced on us. So there's an article about kapu aloha is not homophobic, panphobic, and transphobic. This article was written by Adam Kiawe, who is a Mahu Hawaiian and Filipino person. Let me see if I can get that for you. If you want to look at that, I think Holly probably already has it, but I've referred back to this article often. It's there's not the only one, obviously. Kumuhina is also a very important figure historically and presently in Hawaii. But Mahu resistance, challenging colonial structures of power and gender, is a very important article about this history of non-binary gender and the third gender of Mahu in Hawaii. Mahu in school was, you know when you see one. A Mahu could be defined as a person of a third gender, non-binary, queer, person that is neither heterosexual nor cisgender, a homosexual, transgender, person who is gender transcendent like the Bisu of Indonesia, and or a person that feels between male and female. It also holds the same meaning in tradition in Tahiti and other places in Polynesia. Mahu means to move between, like I said, Mahu means between worlds, right? Moving between multiple spaces, multiple worlds. And so it doesn't mean like, you're not like Doctor Strange, opening up, trans-dimensional portals into other universes. But it means, moving between what is the masculine space and spaces and ways, and then feminine spaces and ways, or other spaces and ways that might have more. Each culture identifies these things differently. Like the Bisu is its own unique thing. That's why it's you can't really equate Mahu with the two-spirit. Even though they have similarities, you can't just be like that's the same thing as the two-spirit queer peoples of various Turtle Island cultures. It also holds the same meaning and tradition in Tahiti. Anyway, so that's some of the article if you want to check that out. So binary and gender fluid people are accepted in Hawaiian culture and play vital roles. So there's also a Kumuhina has had. There's also Kapai Mahu, which is a exhibit. I think it's at the museum right now, Bishop Museum, about the stones, the healer stones of Kapai Mahu, and it is a exhibit about. You can also watch the story of the stones here. So the Mahu. This image is this. There are like a series of stones in on one of the beaches on Oahu that are representative of. They said they were just like wizard stones, but it's really the representative of the Mahu third gender people, and they were really in reverence and in recognition of them. But that has been buried. Like Kumuhina talks about how that history, the colonizers, like so many things about Hawaiian history and indigenous history, have erased and buried that stuff, and just call it was just wizard stones, right? A lot of the whole big kahuna, oh, the Hawaiian witch doctor and this voodoo stuff. That a lot of that voodoo, it's not voodoo. Voodoo is its own thing, but it's kind of equating all that stuff together, right? When you equate some, the Afro and Caribbean cultures practices with some Hawaiian practices, not even close. Part of that is about degrading and erasing both of them, right? As part of when I made the game Decoloniators with Luna Oi, it's about kind of, hey, how do you feel when I just equate Margaret Thatcher with an American president, right? It's like, right? Because it's like, hey, how come that's not correct? You're meshing up a bunch of Anglo peoples together, and it's like, well, I mean, number one, it's comedy, it's a joke. I thought it was a good joke. Number two, how do you feel like now? That's how it feels when you just say, oh, all those Hawaiian with the witch doctor voodoo, they're just superstitious, this and that, right? And like totally misrepresent and inaccurately state things, right? Without any attempt. Now it's different if you're like trying to understand it, but there is a concerted or just an uncaringness about it, and just going, well, we're gonna just dismiss you all with a hand wave of you guys are all just superstitious savages, and so, but back to this. So Kumuhina, who is the narrator of this story of the stones, right? He's also been important on the struggles on Mauna Kea, struggles for Hawaiian culture generally, has been attacked by the state of Hawaii and they tried to have her. They had her removed from one of her schools that she was teaching at, as a Mahu queer Indigenous. Again, like I said, queer people were very well respected and were teachers and very important teachers for the reasons I've stated already, right? The going between the worlds makes them uniquely positioned and respected and cooperated with for that wisdom, right? And then the United States, and also preserving the wisdom, and some part of the wisdom is the true history of Hawaii, which is lost to the colonized. I mean, sadly, a lot of them are Hawaiian dudes and Hawaiian not dudes, who, in my own family, I have like on my mom's side where we have like, there's like 5 siblings, right? And of the 5, the one that is carrying on Hawaiian culture and language, the Hawaiian language teacher, and the one that is like, is like actively rebelling and teaches the students. I remember because I was at Kapilani College in Oahu, and my cousin was there. He has many names. One of them was Kavika, and he was like, you students, would tell a student something, right? As a Hawaiian Mahu teacher, would tell them something, and it would say like, Hawaii became a state in 1959, or Hawaii had practices of this, and the students would just like write it down. And like one thing that Kavika would do is he would say, what are you writing that down? Why didn't you ask me? Why don't you question me on these things, right? Will you just accept what I'm telling you? You should question. Just because I'm a college professor with an accredited degree and I teach at an accredited University of Hawaii system, you shouldn't just accept everything that I'm saying. You shouldn't just accept. You should interrogate. Do your own independent research, right? I remember this is like 25 years ago. I remember he would say, as a Mahu teacher even at the university, would say, part of that is because he's somebody who knew, as a Mahu, as somebody who could see between the Western academic world and the Indigenous world, going between worlds and spaces, could see a lot of this is incorrect. A lot of this is colonizers lying in the education system, even at the accredited American universities. You should, and you remember you say like, you should question what I'm saying just because it's in a book, right? That's a lot of black teachers would be like, just because it's in a book, it doesn't make it true. Who owns the printing presses? Who decides what's on this curriculum? Who decides what goes in that book, right? In a broken, unhealed power structure, a lot of things that get published in books that a lot of people read is going to be either misleading or just outright false. So that was something that's other ways in which like, anyway, so that's where Mahu have been, the person that has shared a lot of this education with me, right? And shares a lot of this education. Is also a third gender person. Anyways, so back to this though. So binary gender in Western imperial concept forced upon us in Hawaii, right? Looking at Hawaiian grammar, one will notice that he, she, and it were all the gender neutral pronoun o ia. This is not only true of Hawaiian, but in every single Austronesian language. In Marquesan, to'ia can mean he, she, or it. In Tahitian, ona or oia means he, she, or it. Sia in Tagalog means he, she, and it. Dia or ya in Bahasa Indonesia. This is largely a remnant of what some call deep culture or cultural subconscious from millennia ago by our first maritime ancestors that survived through our modern languages and still rests within our linguistic conventions and grammar. So the Austronesian language family and culture, which is from Hawaii to Madagascar, Indonesia, it stretches across the entire world, actually. But it's all the way to Rapa Nui, the south, in the southeast of the Pacific, all the way to Madagascar near Africa. Through Australia, up into Taiwan is actually where a lot of these first migrations came from. We're actually all culturally related. And in all these cultures, in Chinese also has ta. Ta. It's very close to ya, right? Ta is a gender neutral, can mean he or she, a pronoun in Chinese. So because, the Pacific peoples, we're of course related also to East Asia. Anyway, so this is largely a remnant of construction of Hawaiian grammar, specifically in relation to gender pronouns, shows clearly that Hawaiian, not just like other Austronesian languages, did not have a construction of a binary gender, social and class system, unlike Europeans or those in the Middle East. They did not see humanity as being divided simply into two genders, nor were binary gender roles reinforced institutionally. So you see, binary gender roles are not institutionally reinforced, right? So when Jordan Peterson, right, again, coming back to him, when he says, your body has to look like this. Your body has to look like this. Or what did he say? Sorry, not attractive. You're authoritarian tolerance. That's a very important thing. That's a very Christian thing. You, the oppressed, are oppressing me, right? You're authoritarianly asking me to give you mutual respect. You see, right? But that's a very Christian, like that's the Western culture is like that. But it's a special Christian persecution complex thing. You're oppressing me for asking me to stop making you change your body based on my own preferences, right? You see how that, like, it's simultaneously, it's a very advanced form of abuse, because you simultaneously put yourself high and holy and good and put other people down and maintain the oppression while making yourself seem like a good person, right? So that's the important trick that the West, that's, if they haven't really invented much of anything. Paper was Chinese. All the Japanese are over there going, it was Chinese a black powder and the gun invented 1,000 years ago that killed Shinzo Abe. And it's like, and somebody said, well, you see, Japanese fascism that resulted in oppression and death and sexual enslavement of countless Asian women and abuse of China. The Tao works in mysterious ways. You see, the Chinese invent the gun. That's the long game. That's the Chinese long game. That's the real go game. Is they invent black powder 2,000 years ago when everyone was still not washing their asses, throwing spears at each other in Europe, and the Yamato Empire was over there doing barbarism against their own people. And the Chinese invented black powder so that 1,000 years later, the gun would come back in the hands of somebody and they would shoot Shinzo Abe. That's the 25-dimensional chess of the multi-dimensional Chinese super advanced alien civilization. No, that's just it has to. But you see, it has to be something bad about those people. Anyway, so it has to be something that you've done that's bad, and I'm a good person, right? Just whatever it is, you got to invent it. So being in a Christian culture is practice for working at the NED or at the New York Times or Human Rights Watch or Reuters or any Western media think tank, or most jobs. Marketing is all shaming you into. Putting the word indulgent on your chocolate is about making you stop eating chocolate so that you can, again, buy more clothes when you change shape, and also make the male gaze happy and altering your body, right? You are sinful. You're having that Magnum giant triple chocolate fudge brownie popsicle. You're sinful. And that's why it also reinforces you fallen. Eve, right? The women have fallen. In Christian, I did a whole stream about Christianity and Sabrina and demons and Eddie from Stranger Things. But it's like, you're sinful, you're fallen. When you eat that chocolate, when you eat that caramel fudge latte, and you gain, like, you eat a 2,000 calories sundae, you are like Eve. You are to blame for everything. You see?
that's you being bad. And then you feel it, and it reinforces in your own mind. Oh, I deserve to be subservient to men and do all the care work and do 3 jobs and work in the office and come home and work another job doing laundry and cooking his dinner because I ate a popsicle. Like the Bible told me, I'm a sinful woman and I deserve to be punished for my sins by doing whatever he says. I ate the apple. You know, like you're eating that candy apple. You're eating that apple cake right now. Just like your great grandmommy ate that apple and got Adam and Eve cast out of the garden. You are sinful. You know, but do you see? So that, hey, whoever came up with that propaganda campaign to make that the sinful stuff, to make you stop eating food in the 50s and the Mad Men era, that was I don't want to say genius. I just say like that was very effective and very horrific. Because it simultaneously reverses like your body is owned by the man. You are bad. You're sinful. Go back to church and repent for your sins so that you can learn how to not take COVID vaccines and have vitamin Jesus cure your diseases. And also remember Genesis. Remember how you did that? Remember, and that's why things are the way they are. Things are bad. Why? Because women are destroying my video games, right? Things are bad because there's a female Skywalker, and that's why things are bad, right? Things are bad because my male power fantasy. My normal video games are no longer being appeased. That's why things are wrong. And so I'm gonna go join fascists and Nazis, and I'm gonna go make it right by wiping out the scourge of the dark orcs and the demonic Eastern and black, and everyone Russian is basically all demons. And I'm going to wipe out all the women and all the SJWs that are hurting our whiteness. I'm going to make 25 babies with Elon to make sure more white men come about. Right, you see, it all very much does work together, right? And Elliot Page is here destroying my great Western white man future, you know, like we need to preserve a future for this. Like that future, there's no future for it, you know. And Elliot Page has to be fought front and center. Has to be head-on attacked because if we don't stop this, the legions, right, the dark legions allying with all of the white women, and they're all gonna come and they're all gonna like take us over, and we have to stop the SJW hordes, and we have to stop the woke army. We have to stop, you know. So like that all comes, and then join the military, obviously. Throw money into some Nazis in Japan or Eastern Europe's hands, and I don't know. Anyway, so back to the Mahu though. So in Hawaii, right, this concept of seeing things as not having to reinforce the gender roles before I was not a thing that we did. And so the language, like not because it's not a guarantee that because the language doesn't have gendered pronouns means that everyone was so good, right? But it's like you have to, it's one piece of a puzzle that you have to look at many, you know, like dialectical thinking, right? Don't immediately jump to conclusions. Like try to do a diverse and deep investigation, and don't, you know, as Uncle Ho from another base indigenous civilization, Vietnam, would say, no investigation, no right to speak. So, you know, so it's not just like, oh, that means this and means that, you know, so you should look into things. Also, no investigation, no right to go on Twitter and demand education from people. You know, like Holly is constantly encountering this kind of stuff. Like, explain this, explain that, explain this. That's why, you know, Holly does a very important work, because otherwise I have to look at my chat. And sometimes it's like, I don't really want to look at it because otherwise it's going to throw me way off. And my mind cannot handle getting into arguments in my head with people that are being very deeply wrong on my stream. So that's part of why that is. Anyways, but back to this story. So in December 2020, Oscar-nominated actor Elliot Page came out as transgender. In a statement that was posted to the Instagram page, Elliot said, "I feel lucky to be writing this, to be here, to have arrived at a place in my life." And, you know, very happy for Elliot. And just, you know, so part of this is like the indigenous peoples of Hawaii and of the Turtle Island and the world are also cheering Elliot Page on. All of them. All of us really should be. And if you're not, you should interrogate. Why? Where have you failed in your own education about who you are as a Native Hawaiian? Because if this continues, this again is a win that is a win for all of us. And also, it's important to remember that if Elliot Page was Elliot Page in Hawaii or in Turtle Island 600 years ago, Elliot Page would not be castigated and attacked and be mistreated, and it wouldn't be a huge issue. There wouldn't be a whole controversy. This would have just been Elliot Page would have just been Elliot Page. The end. You know, like I said, it's like changing gender is like changing clothes, right? Like if one day you wear a t-shirt and the next day you wear a tank top, nobody goes out and nobody is upset, and then it doesn't cause like a weird stir in the family. They're not writing New York Times articles about, oh, millions of Americans were wearing a t-shirt and the next day they wore a sweater. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. You know, it's not a thing. Because gender fluidity is accepted in the culture. Because non-binary trans people are just accepted, right? It's be like, nobody goes, oh, it's weird that, you know, you're playing an acoustic guitar, right? If Master of Puppets, bringing back to Eddie, if Master of Puppets is being played on a stage of Metallica playing a concert for 1,000 people, and then they play acoustic guitar in a coffee shop because I don't know if Metallica plays in coffee shops very often, but if James Hetfield and Tony Iommi or whoever the guitarist is now is playing in a coffee shop, they're playing acoustic guitar or for like a small concert because it's a smaller venue. But they don't go, it's the end of the world because Metallica they're acoustic philic. What will this do to Western civilization? It's just like he felt like playing an acoustic guitar because that was what was appropriate, and that's what he felt like doing that day, right? Oh no, people are eating chocolate instead of strawberry ice cream. That's not the end of Western civilization. It's just that's what you felt like, right? But it is. You felt like expressing like a man when you should be expressing like a woman. But it should be like you like like, you know, and oh my goodness, you are a person of male. You're a person that is presenting as male, and you were sleeping with women, and now you want to sleep with another man. Oh my God, that's sodomy, and now you all have to be burned or imprisoned like Alan Turing, the guy who's won the war for the good side. You know, it's like it is, but you know, it shouldn't be a thing in the way that people having more of this or that ice cream doesn't break things. You know, you don't look at your partner differently. Oh, you ate chocolate, but now you eat strawberry. I can't be, you know, it's like she's a 10, but like strawberry ice cream. Oh, deal breaker, you know. But if she like chocolate, I'll be fine. Like that, you know. Also, that whole meme is just kind of weird. But anyways, anyways, back to this though. So again, I just want to. Part of this is about reaffirming that it is not that the controversy around Elliot Page is bringing to the forefront the just very disastrous ways of the Western culture and the binary gender. The people of Hawaii that have had the gender fluidity and acceptance of LGBTQ plus people forced out of us, right? This is both speaking to people who are Indigenous in Hawaii and other people around the world who don't know this that are also Indigenous, but especially in Hawaii and also in Samoa as well. The people who, every Indigenous people that have been colonized and highly Christianized, which is most of them, have to realize this, which is that binary gender and Mahu being negative and gayness and all these things being unacceptable, that was forced upon Indigenous peoples like us by Western imperialism, by Western colonization, by Christianization, and the patriarchy and the capitalism, etc., that come with that. So that's what I want to kind of, and so by extension, we also support our relatives of the lower melanin count that are currently, you know, we're just celebrating their wins. Actually, Elliot Page's attitude is very much the attitude you should have, which is just like, Elliot Page is not over there hot, getting upset at Jordan Peterson and like doomering out about this. Elliot Page is just like, not saying anything. Elliot Page is like, I'm just living my best life now. And Jordan, hey, sad boy Jordan, go cry and quietly, you know, secretly, Jordan is like actually probably attracted to the body types that he's seeing of Sports Illustrated. Hey, Jordan, you know, that's what a lot of people who are very highly transphobic and reactionary, they turn out to actually have lots of trans pornography in their searches, right? And it's just kind of this weird self-hate, not weird self-hate. It's just a normal fucked upness, right? To maintain my power in Western society, I have to outwardly project that I like women whose bodies are contorted in an incredibly unlikely way, to have tiny waists and giant fake boobs and stuff, and blonde, and act like Barbie dolls, right? And I have to project that I like that, even though I don't like that. Like even Arnold Schwarzenegger was, he was over there like, having times with his, not supermodel shaped, more naturally, shaped, Hispanic maids in his household, right? Not because I don't want to throw shade at his wife, ex-wife, etc. It's not really about that, but it's kind of like he has to project that that in the fitness Western and also the capitalist world, as a Republican man in the United States, he has to project a certain image about who he is, who he wants. His body reflects his success in economics and movies, and his the ideal bodies have to also reflect, right? The ideal bodies of women have to reflect what is ideal, which is not actually, but it's really not normal. And also, and so when Elliot Page is just like, no, I'm just gonna live my best life. When the Sports Illustrated model is just like, I don't care what you say. I'm not gonna, like when the Sports Illustrated model is like, I'm not gonna like suddenly just like lose weight again because a dude demands it. Right? Like, I'm not gonna just lose weight because some dude demands it. That is just, again, that's what's coming up against. And like that's the attitude that women and non-binary people and queer people should have. We just like deal with it, and not don't be scared, don't doom her out, because the time of white male capitalism is over already. It's passing. And most of the people that are dooming out are white dudes, and dudes that are too white inside and too capitalist and selfish inside. And let them fall apart, Get with the program or fall apart. You make a decision. But don't associate with them. Don't date them. Don't change yourself for them. Don't change yourself for them. I guess that's part of why I do these streams. Because I spend so much time trying to change myself for the United States and for capitalism, and not being more out in queer. Now is the time to fully be who you are, and and demand that they either treat you as a human person and do their equal labor, clean their own fucking house and clean their own room and do their own, pay their own way, at their own fit, their own part, demand that they do that shit, or demand equality, like actual equality, not like equality, like actually, like because that time is over. And I say that as somebody who could just keep being a dude and benefiting from this. I'm like, no, I don't want that again. In the same way that I'm like, I don't want to make a lot of money on Wall Street and then everything else suffers maintaining this hierarchy. I don't want a good deck chair on the Titanic, and you shouldn't either. And yeah, don't worry and cry about this stuff. You'd be upset, and things are upsetting, but we also have to, part of the way that I maintain, like, service book, how do you maintain positivity when everybody's falling apart and crying themselves to sleep every night and they can't even handle this stuff? Part of it is by just remembering that, like, this is by remembering that this is the direction that things are going in, and also remembering that, like, that we can be part of these solutions. It's going to take a lot of work, but we can be part of these solutions, and the solutions are going to come one way or the other, and we just gotta like, I'm not, just not that you just gotta like stay courageous when people are telling you, just go back down, just give up on this, just give up on that, just go back to work, stop striking, just go back to work and make your body the way men want it. That's right. Every woman that doesn't alter their body for a man, or every person that doesn't alter their body, every non-man coded person that doesn't alter their body based on the demands of dudes, is a global strike. It is its own general strike in the world, in one of the spaces that is the not the battle of sexes, but it's really about, it's not the battle of sexes the same way that the war between US and China is not really a war. It's a struggle between two different ways. It's like, you're gonna treat me equal. I'm not gonna not like women want to kill all the men or something, right? But that's what they'll say. Women are conspiring to eradicate all men from the earth. Like black and brown people are conspiring to build a ethno state, right? That's what they always say. So that, again, that's not what we want. But what we want, it is a struggle between people who don't want to treat with respect and equality and people who are like demanding it. And so every person that doesn't give in to these demands is a part of that action. Every person that doesn't, every time a global South, let's say every time a global South country says the Queen is no longer our ruler, like Jamaica, right? Every time Ecuador, Nicaragua says, no, we're not going to do what the U.S. empire wants. We're going to do deals with whatever partners we want, and we're gonna make deals with China. We're gonna have win-win cooperation. And Cuba says, no, we're not gonna change and become capitalists like you. Every time that happens, right? It is part of the success. And so to view yourself as part of that group, that is in the process of building the least bad future. There's no future where there's not going to be suffering. It's going to happen, right? But that's how you can stay, stay in that solutions oriented. As Holly has a show called Kate Nick's The Summoning, which is coming out next Tuesday at 8. The next episode, and it's about one of the themes was like get shit done, because also people around, right? A lot of people's circles that are like wilting flowers all over the place, and just like not getting shit done. And so, anyways, and so that's where we just got to keep going with that, and I think things are gonna work out. Things will work out for our mother. That's the main thing for me. As like, hey, I finished Neofeud, I put it out, I can, wherever way it goes, I'll be like, I'll go happy knowing that I put that out. Also, having, Holly and the children, I'll know that I did the absolute best that I could. And I'm happy with that, If the wildfire comes tomorrow or the hurricane comes tomorrow or the whatever comes tomorrow or next year or next 10 years or next century or never, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's where you don't doom around. The doomering is people who are still stuck thinking that they are owed something and they're sad they didn't get the thing that they were owed. So they're crying to themselves because they're selfish. But that's a very Western dude perspective. It's not what is owed you, what has you given to the world, I've tried to reiterate that as much as possible because there's a lot of people around that don't get that or they forget, but it's not what is owed to you. What aloha have you given? Aloha is not like, how much did I get? Aloha is how much have you given, And that's what in the end will make you whole. That's why I go to sleep. I don't have trouble sleeping. I sleep too much sometimes, Sometimes I worry, like things are going to get bad. But then I'm like, I know I've done my best and I haven't fallen down on my own kuleana like some people. And so whatever happens, I did what I could do. I did these streams. I made Neofeud. I did all Luna's panels and Asia Pacific Cooperation. I did everything I could possibly do. And, if I'm not doing enough and I know I could do more, then I would feel bad. Because inside I would know. Now, how much I can do, I can't do everything. I cannot build communist Hawaii. I don't have the capability. My back is not going to withstand. I can't even stand up all day. I can't even sit down half the day. But I know in my own mind that I've done everything I possibly could, so I don't feel bad, right? But if you feel bad, it's because you could do more. The phrase is closest to man up in Hawaiian is kukanaka, stand up like a human. The word parent, the reason why you can't get to sleep is because inside you failing. So that's what you got to keep in mind. The phrase closest to man up in Hawaiian is kukanaka, stand up like a human. The word for parent, makua, is gender neutral. Most names are also gender neutral, like Mahealani. So resistance challenging colonial structures of power and gender. So anyways, so I already said the article. I'm kind of repeating. I'm kind of not quite on my exact topics right now. I'm kind of getting to that point where I gotta probably get off soon. But I often alter my own presentation. So I do want to say, like, as part of, I don't really have time to get it all together on the stream. But I'm gonna do. I do this on like streams all the time, right? And I'm not only doing this because because. Well, I mean, I'm doing it for all the reasons, but it's not just because I want to support LGBTQ plus rights, which I do. I alter my own presentation because I am in support of those rights, but also because it's about self-decolonization and it's about reclaiming gender fluid Hawaiian culture that was stolen from me by the U.S. empire when it illegally occupied Hawaii and forcefully colonized us. Hawaiian language was banned by the U.S. when I was born, like I said already. It's also important to remember that control of bodies and gender expression is integral to interlocking systems of white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism, as I said before. Right? So the fight over gender and even like pronouns, not just the words pronouns, but what is behind that, which is the respect of people when they politely request you to use certain pronouns, right? Right? Under the fucked up English language, right? The fight over those pronouns is actually part of the fight against capitalism and patriarchy and white supremacy at the same time, because they do interlock. Devaluation of certain genders and races over the others allows devaluation of their labor, is another way that these things impact each other, such as care work and unskilled jobs, which are black and brown. Basically, they say unskilled jobs. What they mean is slave jobs. What they mean is black and brown people's labor, which is under racialized capitalism, which the U.S. and much of the Western world was founded upon, right? So care work is work was a big phrase that people were talking about, right? Care work is work, right? So I try to remember to shout, like, thanks to Holly for all the work that Holly does. Without Holly, there's no Silver Spook anything, Silver Spook Hui, Silver Spook Games, or nothing, because I wouldn't be able to have all the material needs met, and the kids would not have the primary caregiver, because Holly does more. Anyway, so all that stuff is like very important and valued labor. That's part about treating people with mutual respect. It's about recognizing all work as equal work, not this work is better. Oh, I'm Jordan Peterson. I write books for a living and I open and close my mouth, right? And that's why I deserve $1 million a year or whatever. I'm Elon Musk. I'm a CEO. I deserve what? $160 billion? Does he do 2.5 million times more work than the average? So again, but the women being lesser, right? Also is part and parcel of maintaining the capitalist structure that is certain work is better than other work, right? The nurses, the janitors, the this and that, teachers, they don't deserve work because that's women's work. The Chinese Exclusion Act was actually based on Chinese can't do anything except women's work. Chinatown, I did a stream about everything everywhere all at once, cooking, right? Chinese food that actually tastes good, your egg foo young, and then white people make fun of you, egg foo young, and they call you, they attack you by insulting you by calling the names of your tasty food that they eat, but they call it cheap at the same time, and everyone is doing women's work, which is cooking. Of Asian descent, right? Chinese people, because they were banned from doing anything because white men were afraid of competition from people who actually treat other people with mutual respect, like the Chinese, and then they make them more productive. That's actually what that was ultimately about. It's about the fear of a win-win cooperative America where there's huge amounts of win-win cooperative Indigenous Asians and win-win cooperative Indigenous Turtle Island people pushing out white capitalism. That's actually what a lot of the Chinese, because there's a lot of people there and they're like, oh my God, if these people could come. And that's why the white solution was to mass murder Asians. And anyway, so this all comes together where you talk about care work, right? The cooking and the cleaning and all that stuff, like the laundromats and laundry in the house and laundry out the house should not be valued at $8-10 an hour. It should be valued at all of your material needs met, ideally under communism. But I mean, all of your material needs being met and all of your decent access to your healthcare, your housing, everything. The men in the 50s who maintained their households is premised upon the white wife in the household, right? Just being a good little housewife, being devalued, right? Like, I don't know, an Asian person, right? Who only does the women's work. So the white man has to have the devalued wife so that he can have his sex puppet, right? And his personal slave or servant in the household. And capitalism by extension also needs that because that helps to maintain certain value. Certain work is less, certain work deserves less than others on this tier of working. And you have this labor aristocracy that's needed to maintain the appearance of spiritual vitality and progress against the Soviet Union and China in particular, especially after World War II, when you have huge communist countries and the West is trying to go, how do we keep everyone voting And how do we buy off, right? With social democracy there was an attempt, all capitalism almost exploded in the 1930s, right? How do we buy off enough of the population? Well, let's give white men just enough to be happy, but let's keep the women subservient, and the black and brown people, you got to go back down, right? What happened to, right? I thought we're all in this together, right? Patriot socialists. What happened to black and brown people in the 50s after the 30s? And this, white men were bought off, given a Stepford wife, and black and brown help servants. So that was what happened in the United States. And so that's why care work has to be recognized, and women equality has to be recognized. And the fight for the gender equality and of patriarchy is integral to the fight against capitalism. And also, fun fact, Westernization erased many female leaders in Hawaii, such as Kukaniloko, and women who fought on the front line of battles in defense of sovereign country of Hawaii, or to unite the country of Hawaii. Women in Hawaii were consistently in what the West considered male professions, and has attempted to systematically bury this fact. So this is an image of the women that were fighting, and this is a battle happened on Oahu. Not because battles are good, but this is one of the few that there actually weren't a whole lot after that in Hawaii, and actually Hawaiian lifespans were very long. The war was much less common among a lot of indigenous cultures than West has led you to believe. Not barbarous, savage, brutish, dark, constantly throwing spears at each other. The reality is, like, this fight happened because colonization was such a threat to all of Hawaii that Hawaii had to be united in order to withstand colonization. It's kind of like uniting against the uniting the peoples against a colonial oppressor. This happens again in Africa and South America, and so, uniting under uniting together as a bloc. Even the pink tide, in a lot of ways, is currently South and Central America is trying to come together as a plurinational, leftist, indigenous, and socialist-led bloc against the United States. If just one country tries to go it alone, it's going to be very difficult. If the people of Bolivia didn't unite together, right? And of course, this it does not say that, but they did fight in a lot of these places. There are fights between fascists and between indigenous leftists in places like Bolivia. In Colombia, it's happening all the time. Evo Morales was fighting U.S.-backed corporations and capitalists in the rural areas of Bolivia before he later on became the leader. But not because we want that, but because people have to become unified in order to resist these colonial structures. But also, in the process of this battle, you don't see these images, which is actually where just as an example, I had a Wonder Woman video that I recently put out as well, where I talk about Wonder Woman is part of that. And I'm sorry, Carter, or Agent Carter, is a show where women only started fighting in the mid 20th century in Western military, right? Whereas indigenous peoples and Hawaiians, this had happened. This is hundreds of years before that, and it really had always been. The people who founded Vietnam, like Luna has this very good video about Vietnamese revolutionary women warriors of Vietnam. Vietnam was founded by two lesbian women, one of the most based countries on the planet Earth, right? I don't think it's a mistake that was founded by two lesbian women. It wasn't a bunch of really patriotic socialist dudes. It was like two lesbian women who were generals and fought and died in each other's arms in battles to defend Vietnam. It was actually very similar for a lot of Africa as well, including the Kendake of Africa, who also fought to the last to. Oh, I didn't mean to put that out there, but fought to have the end of. Fought to.
Refuse this.
Sorry, the African Kendake who fought to the last against British colonization in Africa. It wasn't the dudes that were standing up. It was the women that were fighting at the end. The dudes all wanted to just give up and let the British come in because they knew they might have a better deal. I don't know why, because they're cowards. Or they might have a better deal under the British patriarchal system. Who knows, right? Or they're just dickheads, like a lot of dudes nowadays. And so, but Vietnam is a place that had lots of revolutionary women warriors that actually fought. And like when it really came down to defense of the peoples, and for fighting for the right reasons, right? Like to actually defend the people and maintain the lives of all of the children and the future generations, right? That's who was coming out for the battles, right? When it's conquest and fascism, it's usually dudes. When it's going out and crushing and stealing other people's stuff, it's a lot of times it's dudes. When it's defending actual evil, it's, not to say there's no dudes, but it's a disproportionate, it starts to shift who is actually fighting for it. But when it's, let's all sign up to build the great master race, when it's, let's all join the Azov battalion, when it's that kind of thing, it's disproportionately other types of people. So Hawaii was one place that had that. And so I think that's again, each one of these things, that doesn't mean that Hawaii was the most base place in the world. You gotta, that's just one piece of a lot of different pieces of the puzzle. The fact that there was one single pronoun for men, women, and also nature, which put it on a level playing field. That's just one piece of the puzzle. But together you start to get a picture with all of these bits of the information coming together. So this was Kahu Manu, who was also a very strong female leader in Hawaii, who the white Christian patriarchy, the Christians who came into, the missionaries who came into civilize, right? They complained that she never really fully converted often. They would also say they had a very hard time because for white Christian missionaries, they wanted the women, including her, to be subservient to men, because that was the way of the West. And it was constantly grinding gears. And like she did a lot, and this is why I say where a lot of Hawaii is incredibly complicated. Like even the Union Jack, I always bring this up because Hawaii is not a place that everyone was just like, yeah, no, we're gonna be Christian. Oh no, we love Britain. The Hawaiian, like there's another Hawaiian flag. This is not the official Hawaiian flag. That's just a flag. I like to put it up. It was actually based on the seal of the leaders of Hawaii way back in the day, but it's not an official flag. I just put it up because I don't like having to explain this one all the time. But the reason why the Hawaiian flag has a Union Jack in it is because it was to not be fully colonized, they had to trade off, right? Like Vietnam doesn't want for billionaires and to have private businesses, but they have some as a trade-off so that they can not starve to death, right? Under the way that some communist countries have been crushed by capitalist colonial sanctions and blockades, right? So that's a trade-off that Vietnam still has to make. China has to make trade-offs they don't want to make, right? They would love it for they're not to be no capitalist countries, but they exist. Not for much longer, but they exist. So Hawaii also, similarly, the leaders brought Christianity in, but they didn't go, well, we're just going to give up all, now we're going to be fully Christian and we just love you. How could you be a brown country in a racist colonizer world where they're constantly saying the N-word all over the place? You have to smile. It's kind of like you have to smile sometimes and figure out how to survive. Like Vietnam doesn't like Luna Oi doesn't like fighting everyone and constantly be called, you frickin' sea slur, shut up. You're not capitalist. That's, you're not capitalist enough from the capitalist Westerners. You're not communist enough from the leftists in the West, right? That's like very frustrating, right? But you still got to like deal with, sometimes it's too frustrating, but you got to still got to deal with that world and the reality, right? So Hawaii also had to deal with this reality. And one of the things that they had was because of the gender, because of the, more equality of gender, the Christians they needed to project Christianity because to be civilized was to be Christian in this time. But they also did not want to fully eradicate their own culture. So that was the bind that they were in. To not be to not become eradicated, right, and just turn into a subservient colony. Hawaii was an independent country. To not become fully subservient meant to have to allow to profess some allegiance to Britain in exchange, right? In the same way that Vietnam still has to interact with capitalist entities to not fall into starvation again. Not because they want to, but because that is the circumstances that they're under, right? That's the material, imperfect world, and so that's important to remember as well. But and I already had an image of that. So coming back to this though, jobs. So anyway, back to I'm kind of off my topics. It's already almost 2. Okay, so it's also important to remember that control of bodies and gender expression is integral to interlocking systems of white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism. The evaluation of gender and races, certain gender and races over others, allows the evaluation of their labor, like care work, unskilled jobs like janitorial work, or work traditionally deemed illegal immigrant labor. Like Americans don't want to do tomato picking and agricultural work. That's the thing article that was always coming out. Number 1, that's assuming Americans are white people. Number 2, agricultural work is not work done by real humans, right? It's well, brown Mexicans or whatever, they just like, that's just, it's a very, it's a very like trying to tread between the lines and going, codifying the labor that unskilled. They don't say brown labor. They just say unskilled labor. It's not unskilled. You need skills to do all this labor. This labor takes more skills than most people sitting around an office flapping their face. Like a lot of executives, marketing professionals, Elon, business dudes. There's not really a lot of skill in that. It's a lot of lying and a lot of being horrible, but it's not really a lot of skill. It's more skill to be a pineapple, tomato, or a corn harvester. Being beaten up in Hawaii also has abused laborers, unskilled pineapple laborers, right? So servants, coolies, slaves, right? But we're not going to say that. Slave is kind of taboo. We're not going to say that anymore. So we just call them unskilled. But that's about codifying those people, those illegals, those brown, those black, those other people, those that don't speak English good. It's kind of all those things together. That stuff is not deemed worthy. You can get $3 an hour. And if you try to unionize and strike, we call ICE. But that's part of the devaluation benefits capitalism, like the devaluation of care work. Oh, well, nurses, and that's not really a good job. That's like not that skilled. That's like women's work. Cooking. I mean, you're a cook. You're just like a line cook. No, that doesn't. You're not deserving of anything. Now, men can be the 4-star chefs and that. You get the big bucks for that. But the women actually doing the cooking, no, that's not really the thing. That actually is the labor, right? But what's the labor, right? You see all of the McDonald's, all of the Taco Bells, all the restaurant industry, the entire food industry, all the agriculture industry. It's all tied into the patriarchal and racist system, right? So you can't, if you don't, and so the devaluation of women is integral to continued labor value extraction and existence of capitalism itself. Not that white dudes can also be exploited in the workplace, but their own struggle is in part and parcel locked into the struggle of everyone else. They don't think about it, but they're most easy to buy off because they have the most proximity to white man capital. White man labor has the most proximity to white man capital, which is why they ally again and again, like in the 1800s and in the 1960s, etc. So jobs we're conditioned to see as white and man jobs, like CEO, are systemically overvalued, right? Like I already said, Elon was given, again, I say he did not make 2.5 million times more than his average employee salary, even though he did, right? He didn't make it. He was given 2.5 million times more by everyone who didn't, do what they have to do to build a worker cooperative in Elon's own or mutually win-win cooperative business environment, right? He was given that by all of his workers and capitalism and the police and the United States and systems that reinforce the fact that he should get that much more, right? But that's how much he made. Jeff Bezos, right? Jeff Bezos reportedly bought a new, he bought a new house for $45 million on Maui after spending weeks donating to local Hawaiian charities, pretending to care about Native Hawaiians. So, he did not really donate that money. Jeff Bezos has hundreds of thousands of workers, and the United States central banking system and federal subsidy system and lobbying system. But all of his workers, most importantly, donated $200 billion of their labor value to him, right? Is another way to think about that. And then he donated some of their donation, right? He reallocated the workers' donation to the charities, right? But the workers at any time, right? Really at any time. If everybody, I mean, it's not one, everybody has to kind of do this together, but at any time, if every worker at every corporation simultaneously stopped working and demanded that the situation alter, if enough people did that, this would be over. The value is not made by CEOs or the president or the senators or anyone, any of these business leaders. None of the white guys in any of these capitalist operations. If everyone in these operations simultaneously, like I said, like Elliot Page, just, I'm not going to change, you change, right? Like the woman going, I'm not going to change my body, you change. I'm not going to date you, loser. You get better, right? If everybody said, Jeff Bezos, you don't deserve that shit. I'm not working for you. Or just, I'm not doing this anymore. And everybody just refused simultaneously. That's what a strike is, right? If everybody simultaneously did something like that, then what does he have? He doesn't have anything. He's just some dude making a weird smirk and then flying in his rocket ship with a cowboy hat. That's who he is. Elon is some dude who likes to put out ridiculous trucks that are in the shape of Lara Croft's boobs circa 1998 because he's into triangular, speaking of gamer dudes, Elon is such a fucking Reddit 4chan, gamer dude. He's over there putting out trucks that look like 90s vehicles, in video games, like I mean, I like Deus Ex and I like those 90s games too, but I mean, the Cybertruck is ridiculous, and then the windows are broken and the brakes don't work because you underpay your workforce and you micromanage too much. So Elon doesn't deserve any money because he's net negative. He's provided net negative value to the earth, right? Every time he opens his mouth, he destroys another piece of the planet by pumping up a Bitcoin. He provides when he says things like, women all just have to pump out 25 white babies. Overpopulation is a problem. That's why I keep impregnating executives at my workplaces. I'm Elon Musk. I just randomly impregnate women at my workplaces so I can solve white genocide. Every time he says that, he's like providing net destruction to the earth, because of the reasons I've already said. So he doesn't deserve any money, but he keeps getting it because people keep giving it to him. Not people, but it's like collectively the workers at any, if they really wanted to do this, they could do this. Everybody could take the actions they got to take. I can't say too much more than that. I think it might be a TOS violation, but people decide to do what they got to do. But it is important that he doesn't produce it. It's the workers that produce all the products and all of the machinery for Mark, all of Mark's code, all of Mark's Facebook, all the people that keep the servers running when Rogers goes down, right? Who puts the Rogers back online? Like, actually, Holly was telling me, we know some people that are very close to very large corporation servers. And they're like, when the fires happen, there's a handful of people that really got to put it out. And there's lots of other workers too. But there's really there's people that have to maintain the servers and the computers that keep your Facebook, keep your Amazon, keep this site, keep Twitter, keep everything running. Really, everything runs on computers nowadays. Everything runs on computers nowadays, including cars, phones, microwaves, fridges, everything, right? There's a handful of people that have to, there's a lot of people actually. But there's also, at some corporations, there's a handful of people who are not being paid nearly as much as these people to keep all of their money-making Facebooks and their Elon cars online. And if, somebody just, collectively said, well, what if we don't keep it online? Don't do that right now because I'm streaming. Okay, just hold on. Wait till I'm not streaming that you can do that. But it's not. But the point is that they're not creating the value. The CEOs of these corporations, it's all the people together that are creating value, and to varying degrees are exploited and are not mutually cooperated with. They are not internally colonized. That's not really appropriate to. But it's like they're internally disrespected and internally treated as the losers inside their own business entities, right? Now, business is not the same as capitalism. It's important. People confuse those. That's what they like. Capitalists like to confuse you that business is capitalism, right? The Chinese are doing business. Cubans do business. So Vietnamese do business. They do business, right? They build things and they make things and then they trade them. Sometimes using money. Now, money is, maybe might not need that one day, but I mean, that's a longer thing. But doing work and then exchanging what you've done with other people for things. Now, commodity speculation is something, but that's a problem. Capitalist businesses that exploit the workers for the profit of a minority of people that are the richest and whitest people. That's a problem. But people need to do business. But people can do business like Huawei or Mondragon or Silver Spook Hui or Motion Twin, another gaming cooperative, without bosses and without. That's why I say without bosses and without landlords at the Silver Spook Cooperative /Hui, right? So people still have to make stuff, keep servers online, farm, cook, clean, do janitor work, program computers. All those things are equally important. There's nothing should ever be valued more than the other thing. Very important. So when I say cook, clean, and be a tech lead at a software company, none of those things is more important. In fact, if you stop cooking and cleaning, if all the janitors quit, things collapse really quickly. If all of the investment bankers stop working, nothing happens. The world gets better, actually. If all the stock traders, if every capitalist CEO stopped being a CEO, the world will get way better because they wouldn't be sucking all that wealth and then wasting it on planes or spaceships to get to Mars, right? And they wouldn't be taking it and wasting it buying up Hawaii like Mark Zuckerberg, right? So if every business dude stopped working, that's how you know your job is actually not that valuable. If you stop moving Excel spreadsheets in the company you're at, if you stop, thinking of a new color of marketing to slap on to Coca-Cola, Like, let's have sky blue instead of, ocean red. Does that really provide net benefit? I mean, you did a little bit of artistic work, but is that really providing a net benefit to the world? Or could you do something better? Could you make art that like activates people to undo colonial capitalism, maybe, like what I try to do, right? That's what I did. I said, I don't want to make art that is net negative. If you're working for a AAA game company, how are you helping people by recruiting people to join the U.S. military, playing a game where you have a high-resolution military sim where you blow up brown people in an oil-rich country? How is Call of Duty helping people? Does that really help? I mean, people are getting enjoyment playing it, but in the longer run, it's kind of like maybe there's something better you could do with your time, right? But I'm not saying that people who make video games are doing things that are providing net benefit in terms of people want and need things to play and people need art and movies to consume. But certainly the executives that run them, certainly the people that are making decisions about culturally and in terms of what the impact has on the minds and the consciousness of people, that's not good, right? But the work itself, the CEOs of these companies and the people who write these scripts, or people who get paid by the Pentagon to make military-industrial complex propaganda in movies and games in the West, right, is a net negative. And if you're thinking about doing that job, that's not something that, if those people disappeared, the world will get better. If all of the game producers and the artists and the writers and the programs disappeared, there would be no Netflix for you to watch. There would be no movies for you to watch. There would be no games. You'd just be sitting there twiddling your thumbs. So that, just generally speaking, as producing entertainment content creators generally, not just people who stream and make YouTube videos, but I mean, everybody who creates, I mean, I don't really like the concept of content creator. It just feels like you're the thing we put in the box and then we put a Coca-Cola label on it. The content creator kind of devalues the content and benefits that which owns the box, the Facebook or the YouTube, the big tech FANG corporation box. And it devalues the people that are doing the work. Without all of the content inside of your great fancy accumulator, your aggregator, right? Your aggregation box has no value. The same way, like, without all of the workers in the Walmart, the Waltons have no money, right? But they call it, well, we're the job creators, right? So anyway, so my point is that, like, the devaluation of women's work and the overvaluation of men's work, like businessman, CEO, tech lead, a high-fangled lawyer that, these people that mostly just open their mouths and lie for a living. Law is overrated and it's lauded in South Ecuador's crisis. It wasn't Stephen Donziger, even though he did good work. It was indigenous people, I don't know, massively going on general strike and causing collapse of that country until their needs and demands were met. It wasn't Bolivia didn't get litigated into undoing its fascist colonial occupation. It was all of the 60-80% of Bolivian indigenous socialists going on general strike. That's what actually got the thing done. So I think that's actually overvalued. Not to say that nobody can do legal work that provides some benefit, but that's also traditionally a men's do job. That kind of stuff. Coal mining, oil work, military, U.S. military service people. These kind of things. Not to say that military is inefficient, but in a world where there's more peace, there's not going to be such need for such military. So that's another thing. If you work in the military or the police highly overvalued. $200,000 a year, a lot of cops are making, right? Police are getting raises. Police are getting more money. I just saw a law was passed that bans filming within 8 feet of police. Highly overvalued, for a reason, because police are necessary to, in a capitalist country, in a racist capitalist country, police maintain capitalist home value by mass evictions, break labor strikes, and mass incarcerate black and brown labor to maintain the slavery in the prisons and maintain capitalism and maintain white supremacy. So that job is also drastically overvalued. So if you're a cop, you should quit. I mean, also that. But back to this thing. So women of, so 211, I'm going to whip through this thread. Women of color continue to suffer the most severe wage gap, reflecting racial, ethnic, and gender biases. At the same time as white dudes are still paid by far the most ridiculous amounts in the universe. I know that's a big statement, but at least the one we know of with sentient life. Let's also not forget Makaleleo Nalani, who went on foot to raise money for the world's first universal healthcare system in 1859 and improved women's rights. The U.S. banned our language, restricted women and our healthcare after illegally occupying us. I'm sorry. I talk about this often, so I'm just gonna my computer's Jeff Bezos just like busted into my computer and slowed it down. I probably have too many tabs open, but now it's currently giving me. It is giving me a slow hemorrhage. Anyways, Emma Kaleleo, Emma Kalani Kaumaka Kaleleo Nalani Naea Ruok is a woman who went to raise money on foot for the world's first universal healthcare system in 1859 and improve women's rights. Speaking of equality of gender, U.S. banned our language, restricted women and our healthcare after illegally occupying us. In 1859, Queen's Hospital provided healthcare at no charge to people of Hawaii. After the illegal military occupation by the U.S., there was a concerted attempt to defund and destroy the system. Today, Hawaiians have some of the worst health outcomes in the U.S. Hawaiians have the lowest healthy life expectancy rate. After that, when the push failed in the legislature, she went from house to house in Oahu to ask for donations to fund the public hospital that provided free care. That's a picture of the hospital on the left there in sovereign country of Hawaii. And also she built a training center for nurses. So that's just an example of historical, women who fought, like the women who fought not just in wars, but women who fought for the most important things that we need, like universal healthcare, right? People are literally dying for that in the United States and Canada by the millions. And Canada, which is like, has a service, but is drastically, and the NHS, which has been falling apart, still better than the US, but still not good. They're wishing that they had the level of universal healthcare Hawaii had, which is absolutely free for everyone, and no denying people access because of disability. Canada actually has less per capita hospital beds than the US. So Canada, in certain ways, is actually worse than the US. Not worse in the sense of the overpriced private healthcare system, but Canada, in terms of access, is should not be laughing and gloating. Anyway, you can also help us again. Oh yeah, before I forget, I should probably quickly say this. You can support, if you value this education and want to help us not become homeless again and keep doing this education work and saving our dying lands and trying to work at the Silver Spoon Hui Cooperative to build a better country against colonialism and capitalism and building our food garden in the front. Speaking of non-monocrop agriculture, consider supporting us through Ko-Fi. Become a Patreon patron. There's a direct donation through the StreamYards link. Actually, I should probably be doing that more often. I got to get more on that. But it is massively appreciated. How much is the education worth? Is it worth like $1, $3, $5? Are you learning anything? Are you entertained at all? If it is, you consider throwing some, whatever you can afford per month, because it really does help us to keep doing this work that we want to keep doing here. I'm going to briefly take a short break and I'll be right back, but I'm going to play this trailer for another game, Neofeud, that just went on sale, but it's not on sale, but consider wishlisting it if you like to play video games, and I'll be right back. Okay, anyway, so that's the game you probably know about. If you don't know about it, that's a game about capitalism, colonialism, growing up as a native Hawaiian under U.S. imperialism, and trying to do my best as a educator and social worker and STEM teacher for underserved and at-risk youth in Honolulu, Hawaii, and trying to help them to stay out of gangs, off of drugs, and on opportunities, whatever can be had in the ghettos of Hawaii, the most economically unequal and the highest mass incarceration rate in the United States. I just learned Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders have the highest per capita incarceration rate, which even exceeds Black people. I did not realize that. Not to belittle that. It is absolutely terrible. The number of there are more in total African people or people of African or Black descent in prisons in the United States, but per capita, the Pacific Islanders are the most over incarcerated. So that's a story about that. That's why Hawaii, when it deals with the prison industrial complex and the police industrial complex, is because we are actually the most per capita impacted by that, as well as illegally occupied. And so anyways, but we're going to finish up now real quick. So, okay. So anyway, I didn't talk a lot about Umbrella Academy, but that's not really what the show is about. I just put it up there so that, YouTube doesn't come. I'm watching lots of left and indigenous and people talking about socialism and stuff. I'm watching all their channels disappear and all their Twitter handles and social media vaporize. So now you know why. We're just talking about, Elliot Page's superhero powers. That's all we're talking about. We're just talking about Umbrella Academy nerd shit. That's all this is. Right? Yep. That's what I'm talking about. I'm just like, I like Master of Puppets and Eddie from Stranger Things. That's all I'm talking about. So anyways, okay, where is my little thread? I lost my thread. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so if you want to learn more about the ban on Hawaiian language, I made this thread earlier this week. The U.S. Ban on Hawaiian language, overthrow, poison of our water, devastating our universal healthcare, overthrowing of our country, illegal occupation of Hawaii. You can read more about that in this. This is the "We Are Not American" speech. Very very important. What? Oh, that's right. It's another woman that's fighting for. It's another woman fighting for the most on the front lines fight for the sovereignty in Hawaii. It's not a bunch of dudes working for the police and the military. It's actually a lot of more queer dudes and Mahu people and women. It's not, it's weird how that kind of works out. It's almost like the benefits of patriarchy under colonial capitalism outweigh the necessary struggle for liberation. Almost. It's almost kind of like that. Anyways.
We are not American. We are not American. We are not American. We are not American. Say it in your heart. Say it when you sleep. We are not American. We will die as Hawaiians. We will never be Americans.
Anyway, that speech goes on for a while. It's stuff that I say is in this speech. Very important. That's how Nanike Trash. But anyway, so the U.S. military continue to poison our Hawaiian water supply. Still hasn't cleaned the fuel in the water. Shut down its tanks. Just quick update. Still happening. But that's not really the point. I'm trying to get through this quick. Okay, that's the end of that thread. Okay, one more thing I wanted to do. So to tie back into the Elliot Page and Jordan B. Peterson here. I'm falling asleep because I do drugs, but I say that I don't. And also, I'm having a lot of difficulty understanding why people don't change their body when I tell them change their body. Why is a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model not looking exactly like how I said she should look? Because I'm a white man and I deserve to have your body meet my male gaze whenever I feel like it. So he's confused. I think Jordan is legitimately confused. Why people aren't just like going along with whatever he and people like him say. Because that's usually what has happened. That is usually what has happened. Like why aren't these people going back to work? Right? Why are the women not working? Why are the women doing whatever they want to do and not just being subservient, cooking and cleaners, and then and also doing full-time jobs and then cooking and cleaning on top of that, right? Which is what they were expected to do after 1980. Why? That's what he's just confused. That's his little glazed stare there. He's like, I had a dream about my grandmother, and it involved pubic hair and a brush, and it's disgusting. And between that and all of the the narcotics I was on, I can't understand. I'm not sure what's going on in my life. If you want to be very disturbed, read the Maps of Meaning. There's some very disturbing stuff in that. And not just all the heteropatriarchal conservative garbage. It's also full of word salad and just nonsense. Anyway, that's the last. I'm not gonna do too much. Jordan B. Peterson gives my ears. I was gonna say it gives my ears. It just grates on my ears. Let's just say that. It's time to talk about gender Europe. But anyways, we once again stand our king Elliot Page and continue to, be unabashedly Elliot, and Jordan can continue to cry along with other people who cannot get with the program. Like in the Going to Hell song, I said Satan is very gay. The thing is, say the devil is a giant non-white gay leader of a Asian or African country like Xerxes in 300, and again, Jordan Peterson, it's the SJW people that are being too gay in my Canada. They're being too gay. They're supposed to have their little month and then they go back in the closet. Why are they all going back in their closets? Why are my students at Toronto University asking me to use pronouns that they want to be used? This is an affront to my, this. I think he said it was a crime against the English language was what he first said. That's what got him all the press, right? This is an affront to the English tongue. Well, the English tongue was forced down my mother's throat. So, literally, there's a lot of sexual abuse and harassment of Indigenous and Black and Brown people, especially in the Asia Pacific. But also, your English language was forced on me. So, the English tongue doesn't deserve any respect, honestly. Grammar Nazis is just like Anglo-Nazis. It's really synonymous. It's a redundant term. Why do you get to force your language on other people, and then you get upset when people ask you just for a little bit? Can you it's not really about it. Can you just use language in English, right? That just doesn't completely disrespect me. No, that's an affront to the English language. Anyways. But yeah, but one more thing on the topic though, is so along with the monoculture and forcing of one's ways, right? Also, there's this whole article about suburban lawns will never be the same. Homeowners, this is from Bloomberg, homeowners from Las Vegas to Sydney are swapping real grass for artificial turf as climate change forever alters what normal yards look and smell like. So, but the thing is, this is very short-sighted again, right? Instead of continuing to play the terminally losing game of forever escalating property values under real estate speculation under capitalism, right? Ponzi pyramid scheme, using your house like some kind of a money-making vessel, which is that's part of how they buy off the white men labor aristocracy, especially after the getting off the gold standard and the neoliberal era. It's about getting everyone to put their 401k and all of their eggs into your property value ever increasing escalation, right? After you open up the Pandora's box that was closed after the 1920s with the Securities and Exchange Act, and especially the reversal of Glass-Steagall under Bill Clinton and Mr. Rubin and Mr. Larry Summers, the dark prince of finance capitalism, as Giannis would say. But why do we need to continue to increase the values of property? And if you can't have green lawns, people are actually being fined in Hawaii. As the U.S. military is poisoning the water supply and the water is coming out of sprinklers, right, turning the lawns yellow and brown, people are being fined for not having green lawns because it decreases the curb appeal, or the overpriced land valuation is going down for neighbors. So you're being fined for not overusing the water that you're running out of, right? You see how it's like such a beautiful or disgusting microcosm of what the world is going through and what Oahu is going through, right? The need to maintain your property values even as you are running out of the vibe that you need to even exist on Oahu, right? This is why I don't have a lot of hope for Oahu, I mean, I want them to prove me wrong. But there's too many Hawaiians that were not out for anti-Haunani. That's the problem, you know? There's too many people in Hawaii of whatever type that were not out there for that. And they need to get out there for this one. And not just be out there for a couple protests. You need to interrogate why. You need to undo the system. It's not just about what kind of grass you have. This is not just about the aesthetics of a multi-plant food garden versus a monocrop Versailles-like lawn, right? This is not just about that. This is much more than that. But it's like Elliot Page and Jordan Peterson, right? Like Elliot's, it's Jordan Peterson's punching himself by trying to hit Elliot, getting himself banned off Twitter. He getting himself hit with a ban hammer, trying to strike at Elliot like a clown that he is. It's a microcosm for the bigger things that are happening, right? Which is that you should just give up on the value of overpriced housing, stop having a capitalist housing market, allow food to grow, which doesn't require watering. Because the part of the thing is you can't water the gardens because you have a drought, plus jet fuel kills plants like your grass. Stop watering plants, right? Find plants, do xeriscaping is one thing. Find plants that will grow in the climate you're in. Do regenerative food structures in your garden. Stop them. Oh, but my housing prices will go down. Housing prices are too high. Hawaii has the highest homeless population. 50% of Hawaiians can't live there. Genocidal and capitalist destruction. Let your housing prices go down. Housing prices need to go down. Right? But no. How are we going to preserve? I'm going to preserve my Kailua house, my Lani Kai house, my retirement's all baked into my fancy house in Oahu. Oh my God. Well, maybe you need to mutually win-win cooperate with the world and stop extracting global imperial blood money and labor into your house. And maybe you need to treat your relatives and the earth and everyone in win-win cooperation so that you have people around and you have an earth to take care of you when you get older. Stop selfishly putting all of your eggs into the Titanic of the U.S. capitalistic, which is involved in your 1.5 kids in your beautiful manicured suburb. Take your eggs out of the Titanic. People in Hawaii, Hawaiian or otherwise, get with the Haunani program. Get with the Native Hawaiian Indigenous land back anti-capitalism, anti-colonial program, and or like I said, or you can just go away and you just be not around anymore, like the two dead incel former gamer guys that worked on my games, like all the people that are dying all over the place because they give up or just falling into their own self-doomering or whatever. You can change that way, and the thing is, it's not optional anymore. It's not optional. This is not really an option, not just for Hawaii. This is for California, for everywhere. You can't just put artificial lawns. It's made with plastic. It causes a chemical runoff. This is not really a solution. This is like a short-term This is like giving an $800 billion bailout to giant Wall Street speculators to prop up the house of cards of the U.S. led global financial capitalist system, right? The global neoliberal house of cards of the Ponzi real estate based infinite quantitative easing system. There's a lot of fancy words, but basically it just means printing infinite amounts of money, giving it to the most privileged capitalist entities in the U.S. empire and the military, and expecting that to continue indefinitely, right? With infinite growth, right? Get your eggs out of that basket. Get right with the mother. Don't put plastic on your mom. That's disrespectful. And all your other relatives that can't live in your fucking plastic astroturf. Don't put dead plastic on your mom so that you can make another $250,000 on your housing price, and then watch the world die. What kind of Hawaiian? That's all the Hawaiians on Oahu though. Not all of them. That's like so many of them. Don't get right with your mother, man, or she burn your face off, like in the song I made. For Native Hawaiians, aina is that which feeds and sustains. Whereas Western concepts like property, donate something bought and sold for profit, like Native Americans' ways, our ahupua'a system provided all of the nutrients needed and maintained a pristine environment for millennia. So this is a map of that. I've shown this before, but you have the mountains to the sea, the leva is sky, mala is the gardens, vau forest, kauhale is the dwellings, kula plain, lo'i kalos the taro fields. Lo'i is like It's a pond field. It's like a system of horticulture. It relies on running fresh water though. So that's Olaika Vai. Water is life. Water is also Vai. Water is also wealth. Fresh water. Kalo is the staple plant. Kahavai is the stream. Kahale dwelling. Kahakai shore. Loko'ia is the fish pond. Moana ocean. So each of this, it was a system that was structured to, and you could work 2 to 3 hours a day. Missionaries, capitalist colonizer missionaries called the Hawaiians lazy because they only worked 6 to 8 or 9 o'clock, and they were surfing and talking to family and socializing and doing other things the rest of the day. Actually still doing work, because actually political organizing is also part of the work, and it takes time and energy. And play is also important, right? I wouldn't call it work, but it is also important to relax for some part of the time. But Hawaiians could get all the work needed to feed 1 million people, each person working 2 to 3 hours a day with this system, with maintaining perfectly pristine environment indefinitely. And in less than 200 years, the United States has completely destroyed multiple islands' capacity to support life. So just another concrete evidence, right? And Native Americans also had very similar, Native Turtle Island or Native American people also had similar systems. Read Braiding Sweetgrass to learn more about that. I highly recommend that book. I'm almost done with it. It's it's very well written. Native Hawaiian land back as a Native Hawaiian, land back is not about changing ownership of land, but it's about ending ownership of land, or Aina and people. Aina is your mother. You cannot own your mother. You mutually cooperate with your relatives, or you end. Reiterating what I said. The environment, like women and like queer people, right, have tolerated for far too long, for various reasons, this win-lose relationship. But that is over now. And so you will cooperate, or you won't be around. Broken colonial capitalism is learning the hard way, right? So this is happening. This is happening, right? Who's dooming out? Dudes. Mostly. Because, who's leading all the indigenous struggles? It's women and queer people mostly that are actually doing the water protecting. Most of it is mostly being led by, people like Kumuinas, being led by people like the tiny house warriors, indigenous women, actually. Dudes are all like falling off, sadly. I mean, not all of them, but too many of them, And I would argue part of that is their patriarchal socialization under colonization. I don't think that they would have done that as much, let's say, pre-colonization. But today, they're all just falling off into their own pits of their self. And women are picking it up like always had to happen. Not always had to happen. Has happened, sadly. And so now, that's why I even look in my own people that I'm talking to. I'm seeing a lot, even in indigenous world, I'm seeing a lot of the dudes are all like falling apart. And all of the black and the brown women, they're all the ones that are ready to, they're like just going harder and harder and just like, because, like for them, it's like, I mean, I don't want to say what it is, but I'm just noticing this pattern. I'm just noticing that pattern. That's why I'm like, I don't really, I don't want to, I'm not somebody who, just wants to do the best and wants the earth to survive. And I don't have time to doom her out, I don't have the luxury of going on sadcation, because I'm like too busy trying to do what needs to be done. Or at least that's the way I view it. I don't want to organize with those people, it's like Holly was saying, yeah, actually in your circles, you're having like more and more of these other, this is a lot of people who are like, because Holly's more involved in a lot of the, like seeing what is happening in the streams and such. These are the kind of people that are around. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm noticing a pattern here. And I'm like, that's fine. Cause like, I noticed it too. And like, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to change the way that I'm not going to, oh no, it's okay. Go cry, little boy. And yeah, just feel sad and complain all day. I don't have time. I'm not going to alter the way that I'm doing so that I can have more dudes watching the stream. They're all going to not be around anymore soon anyway, because they're all they're all like, just, I don't know what's happening. They're just falling the fuck apart. I don't have time for that. The earth doesn't have time for that. Women don't have time for that. Queer people don't have time for that. Mother Earth don't have time for that. So sorry, grow up. Sorry, bro. So Department of Indian Affairs explicitly stated indigenous people were collective communist communistic and their common property ways could not coexist with so-called civilization. Civilization meaning private property-based capitalism out of balance with nature, rooted in genocide and slavery. So this is actually directly stated. For people who are like, well, land back means this, land back is an indigenous ethno-state capitalism, this. I mean, like I already said, there are internally, there are problems with people of Hawaiian and indigenous descent that have been too deeply colonized. But when it comes to the people that are actually fighting on the front lines for these struggles, the people that are actually protecting the water and the people that are at the front lines, especially in Turtle Island, we need to return to respect of land and coexistence with land, like the way that I have kind of described it. Sometimes people hear land back and they like misinterpret it, but sometimes indigenous people want people to, get freaked out so that they come and actually listen. Because indigenous people have to scream, like black people have to like burn half of America down in Black Lives Matter, right? Before people even listen, right? Derek Chauvin got 21 years, but what did it take? Tens of millions of people in the street for a year? That's not justice. That's like one person that died. That's not even all of the people that are suffering and dying in the police and over incarceration, right? Especially black and brown people, right? That's not justice. That's like a little bit of PR, really. The whole U.S. police department is all like basically is a criminal enterprise. So civilization, right? So this concept of indigenous peoples, right? The concept of civilization is really a misnomer, right? Not just because of the police, but just because of the meaning of private property based on capitalism, out of balance with nature, rooted in genocide and slavery. How is that civilized? That's the point I often come back to. What do the words even mean in English? That's why it's hard to even speak English and make sense, because this is literally the Department of Indian Affairs, right, of the United States. Unless some system is marked out by which there shall be a separate allotment of land to each individual, you will look in vain for any general casting off of savagism. Speaking of indigenous people, common property and civilization cannot coexist. Let me say that again. Common property, communism, it's actually indigenous people taught the West and Marx and Kropotkin actually everything they really know about that. And then they didn't give indigenous people credit. Not to say you shouldn't read, Marxist-Leninism is its own history and thought, but the concept of communism and common property, the way that it's understood, it was the way that the West understood, and it was the way that indigenous Turtle Island people lived, and it was the way that the West was looking at them. Common property and civilization, communism and civil. Now, what does civilization mean? Civilization, right, means systems of settler colonial genocide and capitalism and mass exploitation and racism. That all comes together, right? So it's like, what does that word civilization even mean at that point? At the foundation of the whole social system lies individuality of property. It is perhaps 9 times in 10 the stimulus. This is now the American Indian Department speaking. 9 times out of 10, it is the stimulus that manhood first feels. Weirdly, I don't think it needs to be that sexual, but anyways, the stimulus that manhood first feels is individuality of property, the need to control your own property. It's all very male coded, obviously, because it's a patriarchal Western capitalist world. It has produced the energy, industry, and enterprise that distinguish the civilized world. So civilized is that which is uncivilized. You see how fucked up that is? Civilized is that which is literally, right? Civilized is that which is literally destroying this earth, right? If you go back to that one I was just on. Civilized is that which is bringing about this and eradicating all life, right? Or it's trying to. How is this civilized? Civilized is slavery. Civilized is massacres. Civilized is the scalping was done by colonizers, right? So, but again, it's really, it's hard to use that word. It's hard to use any words in English really to make sense when you look at the history of the words that are all reflected through mirrors. But importantly, the way of indigenous people was in practice, not just in theory, because there's never been any communism in the West ever, but not just in theory, in practice, the indigenous people's ways were successfully collective and communistic by the own understandings of Western capitalism. So that's a very important point because for the people who are like land back is not legitimate, and people who are all the patriotic socialist debate bros going, indigenous people have to just get behind class consciousness and we have to talk about class. It's like, but like actually our ways are actual existing successful socialism, and our ways have the not also just for climate alone, our ecological practices and agricultural practices are what's needed, right? So again, and the U.S. military poisons our water supply here and still hasn't cleaned its jet fuel, making Oahu uninhabitable soon. As property value lawns turn brown from the jet fuel in sprinklers, they demand owners use plastic grass rather than rethink dying capitalist ways. This is the U.S. military blasting jet fuel 380 feet. Watching fuel flooding a tunnel 380 feet from the drinking water source took my breath away. This is really amazing. If you want to see something horrifying. 300 feet jet fuel. See if I can get that. It was flooding. I'm trying to get that exact tweet. What is that poster's name? At Christina J. Draw. Let's see. At Christina. Okay. Yeah, here it goes. Here's a video. Check this out. That is jet fuel blasting into a room 300 feet away from the water supply. That's not water. That is U.S. military F-35, F-16, F Raptor jet fuel blasting into a room right next to the water supply. That's all going into the water in a while. So when you come to, again, I said don't come to Waikiki, don't come to Hawaii. They didn't say anything about this. This video was all forcefully redacted and erased, or they just never let it out. They didn't show it. Somehow it got out now. But this is what they've been doing historically forever. I mean, like for the last 80 years, and they just don't tell anyone. So when you come to Hawaii, you might, with the cancer you might have now, maybe when you came to Hawaii, that's how you got the first carcinogens in your body that led to your cancer. They're not going to tell you that. You're just going to get it later and then get sick and die. But that's the jet fuel blasting into the water. So yeah. Anyways, okay. Now where's the last? Where's the last one here? Okay. So the U.S. military, that I already talked about that. But so while the jet fuel is damaging the water supply, the property value lawns turn from brown jet fuel to sprinklers. They demand plastic grass rather than rethink the dying capitalist ways. These are our Native Hawaiians and other people dying on getting sickened from your jet fuel. This is the homeowners fined for not having curb appeal lawns during drought and U.S. military jet fuel contamination. So if your lawn had even a brown patch because you don't overuse water to water your lawn, I'll put plastic grass in that is going to create more damage and water damage, and also maintains your overpriced property value, and also is about importing massive amounts of plastic, which is itself damaging to produce and unnecessary to maintain your property values. Do you see like the multiple levels of self-destructive and ridiculous and just horrific this is? So yeah, that's all happening there. So that's the end. It's already it's almost 3, but it's okay. I was going to do a panel today. The panel is not happening today, so I went a little bit longer, but thank you so much for watching. One more last shout out to Elliot. So again, Umbrella Academy is a good show. Holly and I are watching it. Elliot Page. One more thing just about Elliot and Umbrella Academy. So in Umbrella Academy, like, there's a lot of ways they could have done it, but the way I think that, how I say like shows that have people of the actual marginalized group having input makes a difference, right? So in Umbrella Academy, Elliot Page, right, comes out to the family, right, the fellow brothers and sisters, right, and there's a scene where Elliot goes from the parents on the left, and Holly points out it's a really terrible wig, but it's whatever because it's kind of like, well, that's not my true identity. But the Elliot Page character goes from on the left to on the right, and you witness how people are reacting, and not everybody reacts exactly the same. But importantly, the family's just like, hey, cool, good to it's like, well, we welcome you, Victor, and other characters are like, oh, I want to be nice. I want to give them like a big party, like one of the big dopey guy, or is it Luther, the big dopey guy? He's like, the big muscles guy, right? He's kind of like a big sweet guy. He's like, hey, what do I do? I want to have a party or something and make them like feel loved and welcome. Let's have a big, and everybody's like, what, do we need to have a party? And he's like, he's really awkward about it, but he's also not like just a total dick, like, and then there's, not to say that in the world there aren't people that are dicks, but it's like, the show is like, and then it just happens and then the show moves on. The show is not about, oh my God, and then this is just, it's not, like our flag means death. Hey, we're just people that are not straight and we're not cis. We're just queer people all over this queer pirate ship. It's just a gay pirate ship. And, it just is what it is. And people have normal human lives and relationships. And they're also this thing. Not like, it's all about how there's a gay person here. Look at the gayness, right? That's because it's non-oppressed person writing stories for the oppressed person the way that they see it, right? That's the problem with the Marvel stuff, right? That's what, like Anthony Mackie said, 98% of the writing room and all the after parties are white dudes, right? White dudes writing stories for how it's like to be black, which is about, well, like in Stranger Things, right? In Multiverse of Madness, the Hispanic girl's just like wearing an American flag. I love being American. America is great. There's a little bit of things that are not good, but my country in South and Central America was worse. America is great. I have a star-spangled fucking banner on my shirt, right? Stranger Things, 2 white dudes writing a show. The black girl wearing an American flag, right? Talking about how capitalism is the best fucking thing, right? Those are like people not oppressed looking out. But Umbrella Academy is a show where it's obvious that, Elliot Page has like direct access and or people, that are authentically of that group, right? Trans people, including Elliot Page, are directly saying, well, this is kind of like what I need that story to be told. Can we not do this? Can we not do that? I know you want to do that thing because that's how you perceive us, right? Right? Like Kim's Convenience. I know you perceive Asians as, oh, haha, I have a funny accent. Haha, I'm a white Canadian. I make fun of your funny accent. Or I'm a North American. I make fun of your funny Asian accent. And then the Asians were like, hey, can you not? It's not really what it's like to be Asian. That's how you look at us. And they're like, no. I think we're just gonna be a white writer's room and write you Asians running your convenience store like, thank you, come again from The Simpsons. We're just gonna make a big joke about your ethnicity and how funny your accent sounds, right? We're just gonna, right? And so then but this is not a show. Umbrella Academy is not doing that. So and that's why it's actually very dangerous for the Western civilization. Not that the show itself is gonna destroy Western barbarism / civilization, but it's a show that is like very much normalizing that kind of thing. And and Elliot Page, as somebody who is over there just like, oh, I'm just a trans person. I'm just a trans person now. And then Jordan Peterson is a bunk, and Elon and Jordan are both whacking themselves heads against the wall, right? Getting mad about this thing. And anyway, it's just like, it's we drink the Peterson tears. It's all good. Anyways, that's the end. Neofeud is the game. Go watch Umbrella Academy. Neofeud is the game. Is a dystopic cyberpunk adventure game in the vein of Blade Runner with an overlay of Game of Thrones like intrigue. It is a game about being an impoverished native Hawaiian in Hawaii as well. It is also a game that's I try to the streams are a little more directly educational, but the game is more just satirical comedy and having a fun time and character arcs and all that fun stuff. But also it deals with racial, economic, and political inequality and police, military, prison, industrial complex, and etc. in the game. So if you want to play a game that's both entertaining and fun, check it out. Also, it's like Detroit Become Human, but not run by a giant AAA capitalist company with a shitty white guy at the CEO. Because Neofeud Silver Spoon Games has no CEOs. There are only cooperative members. So and also at Silver Spook Games, you can also give us a even short review. It does help us to get the game recognized in the algorithm and then further supported and promoted as people are watching and looking for things to play. Help them not play AAA garbage. Leave a review for Neofeud. That's a good. Don't let them play more military industrial complex recruitment schemes like Call of Duty. Leave a review for Neofeud. That's the other way to think about it. I got too many tabs. Don't let them play shitty games where like in Free Guy, you got a bunch of white dude power fantasies running around, doing whatever they want to women and non-human NPCs. Get them to play Neofeud instead. Anyway, so Neofeud is also a game on Windows, Mac, and Linux on itch.io. You can give it on sale, and maximum revenue comes to us when you get the game on itch.io. And also, you can find other things such as Decolonators. Decolonators is a game with myself and Luna Oi, another non-man, a woman specifically, Vietnamese communist woman. Look at that, who is also kicking capitalist colonizers' butts out of Vietnam, doing like hardcore land back in Vietnam in retro arcade game glory. And Decolonators is also a game that is it's like supports everything we do here, and yeah, runs on lots of platforms. So consider checking that out. Also, you can get Woman, which is, as I said earlier, speaking of Jordan B. Peterson, it's written by a woman raised in the kind of culture that Jordan Peterson is all about, right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity in so-called Canada. And this book is not meant to be a historical retelling, but it is a kind of dunking on. I'm just gonna say it's a dunking on Jordan Peterson, because that sounds really good. I think that's gonna sell. It is a criticism of conservative patriarchal Christian Western culture. So do consider checking it out. You get it for free, or you can also you can get it and throw some dollars our way if you want to do that. Also, you can go to help us out through Patreon. Like I said, patreon.com/Neofeud. Again, just consider I know not everybody's in their own situations, but can you afford $1, $3, $5, whatever, or more per month to help us keep doing the work that we do here at the Silver Spook Hui/Cooperative, to keep people housed and fed and clothed and electricity on and the cars functioning, and all that costs money, unfortunately, under the system we still have. And so if you want to support us doing that and making the games and doing the streams, consider throwing some dollars our way. Consider also following on at Silver Spook Games at Mastodon at octagon.social, which is Mastodon is a decentralized, non-capitalist, federated, open-source social media platform like Twitter, but without billionaires, Wall Street, Silicon Valley deciding what you see and what you don't see. You can also follow Silver Spook Games at mastodon.social for the games-related stuff. And on Twitter, as I always say, while we have access to the patriarchal Death Star satellites, you can follow at Silver Spook Guy for my personal takes on things, and when the streams go live and articles and stuff like this. And you can also follow Silver Spook Games minus the E in silver for the games related stuff, if you want to learn about stuff like when Neofeud goes on sale, when retro video game channels like Cannot Be Tamed does reviews, like I just tweeted today. And you see all the best reviewers are like non-men of Neofeud too. You see how this works? Dudes just gotta get better, man. Jesus Christ. I'm just kidding. Not everybody who reviewed the game is a non-man or a woman, but this was one of the videos. So you follow Silver Spook Games. Terminus C is Terminus Cyberstar, is another game I'm working on coming out in the near future. It is a low poly cyberpunk immersive sim in the vein of Deus Ex and System Shock. Cyberpunk RPG games like Cyberpunk 2077, but not a giant AAA game and not broken to crap like that game. Cyberstar is also a game that I am the content director and lead writer on. And there's a handful of other programmers, artists, writers, and musicians, and etc. designers working on the game. And they are nearly completed. Just testing and optimization phase now. So once that's done, this game's coming out. So if you want to keep up on this, consider following at Terminus C for updates on Terminus Cyberstar finally. And you can follow at the Tech Fairy for mod VA partner, at Silver Spook Guy. Holly is a mod, a voice actor and partner here at Silver Spook Games, and also is a producer and writer for Design Attack, or the summoning show that happens at 8 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. So check out that ones. And also you can find Holly also mods Magic Storytime, which is a Twitch stream magic show. And Holly also is a writer of the book Woman that I said earlier, and writes as well as a primary caregiver, parent, and a maintainer of the household here at the Silver Spook Hui/Cooperative. And I'll sharing important stuff. Chaos Dragon. It's a reference to Jordan Peterson's book, his garbage book. I forget which one. Massive Meeting. Anyways. So you can follow Holly there. Also, if you want more education on Hawaii and what's happening in Hawaii, Positive Synergy at @_1983 is talks about Save Koloa, shut down Red Hill, protecting Mauna Kea, doing land back, and other things related to these ongoing struggles in Hawaii, and also makes music such as at Perfecting Perfection, an album about being a good comrade, land back, decolonization, and doing this work to undo the illegal U.S. occupation, etc., at Bandcamp with great music and messages. So consider checking that out as well. All right. And now, we're not going to raid anyone. I was like, we're going to raid. Anyways, it's already late. I got to go eat lunch. I feel I'm a little over time, but it's like I was going to probably do another 2 hours of panel anyway. So thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, keep your mirror shades positive, be excellent to each other. Remember, treat everyone with mutual respect, including the non-men's, the women's, and the people around you, and also other nations. And stop commenting to Asians about Shinzo Abe, especially if you're a chuddy piece of crap. Treat everybody with mutual respect, and things are gonna be okay. Or don't, and you won't be okay. Okay, have a good one. Thanks a lot, Big Teal. I saw Big Teal was in this whole time. Thanks for all the hardcore Silver Spook chatter. I'm thinking about the things that you're saying. I know they're amazing things. One of these days, I'm just gonna like talk to all of the best Silver Spook stream chatters. Anyways, thanks.